Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Matt and Carly podcast, or welcome back if this is your return visit to this channel. We are excited to kick off our birth stories in this episode, as hesitant as I am, because y'all will know a whole hell of a lot more about me by the end of it.
Yeah.
But as Matt alluded to, this is for us and our family, first and foremost. So anything beyond that is just a bonus, and a bonus for you, just in case you wanted to know about all the things we're going to tell you in this. So,
Yeah.
I'm excited though. It's gonna be a trip down the old memory lane.
Yeah. Please excuse my poor memory because for me, all three of them happened and it was like probably very traumatic for me. So I'm like, a lot of things are going to pop back in my head and be like, oh yeah. So
traumatic for you.
I didn't purposely block them out of my memory, but
traumatic for you.
It happened so quickly.
What? Put that sentence right back in your mouth. Traumatic for you. Oh, please.
Yeah. So anyway, follow along. We're going to go through all three of our child birth stories one by one and break it down in semi-graphic detail. So enjoy.
Sorry in advance.
Yep. All right. So I want to do this. I want you to tell your perspective on what happened, like how you were feeling, like in detail, because I'm sure there's down the road, if we title this one appropriately, you might be able to help out a lot of new moms and people that are like struggling with like the fear of childbirth. Mm-hmm. Because for me, I was just dicking off and like just hanging in and rolling with the punches. So you break it down, like your feelings, all this stuff, and then I'll chime in and like from my perspective, from like the guy's perspective.
You probably have a really good understanding of my side of it also, because I think you were there for every one of them and there for the process of me going into labor also. Sometimes I think dads show up, not in a negative way, but like mothers start to go through the process early on, and like a dad could be at work or not in the same vicinity, and then it's like, okay, hey, it's go time. Like,
yeah, we were lucky that we were actually together all three times when it started.
Yes.
So,
I agree.
And just to clarify, our kids are now 5, 3, and 1.
Yes.
So that's kind of why we want to get this recorded and work through the memories. Because honestly, when I started thinking about these, I had to think back to which experience was which kid. Mm-hmm. Because they were all very similar. And
yeah, it's kind of weird. It really gets when you're
jumbled. In the moment, it's like
it gets jumbled.
Yeah, it does. Really,
and I wrote some
quickly.
stuff down in like all of their baby books, which was helpful because, and I should have looked through that before this, but that was helpful because it's like, it's kind of like journaling. Like it's the same kind of thought. Like and this is kind of like a video journal, but it's like, if you don't record in whatever format that as soon as it happens, you start to forget a lot of stuff. Yeah. So anyways, okay.
So before we start, to clarify, Carly had 3 natural childbirths.
You just ruined the whole thing, babe.
But it's important to know. So she went through, we together as like a couple.
That was like the best part of the whole thing.
Sorry, I just totally ran down your parade. But it was part of it was a choice. I think like a lot of it was a choice, but the way these like are going to unfold and you'll hear about it, I don't know if we even had time to do anything other than that. So, okay, you start with our oldest story, or do whatever you want. I'll just chime in. Sound good?
Yeah. So, when two people love each other, no, I'm just kidding. We won't go back that far. So we made the choice. Actually, I'm going to start way at the beginning, at the very beginning. And not many of you probably know this, and I'm open to sharing, which is fine. We actually were pregnant one time before our first daughter, and I was about 6 or 7 weeks along, I think, or maybe 8. It was around the 7-8 mark, and I ended up having a miscarriage, which at the time I was not aware that it was as common as it is. Yeah. but that was just getting real heavy into this right away. That was a really interesting thing to go through. Not only just the emotional part of it, not obviously understanding like, can I have babies? Like, what does this mean for my body? Like, who do I call right now? And we made the decision because a lot of people wait. So typically what baby books or like midwives or whatever, a lot of general ideas around when you should tell people is around the 12-week mark, which is after the first trimester. That's like all of the potential things that could go wrong are usually the percentage is a lot lower at that point. So
you kind of get out of the danger zone of like early.
Yeah. You're not in the risk factor is much lower once you pass that point because there's a lot of things that can happen.
Yeah. And not saying it can't happen like at any stage.
At any point, but
the chances statistically are way higher early.
Yeah.
So, in development.
So of course, being brand new to the whole scene and being so excited about everything, we told our families, we told our mom and dad.
I told coworkers.
Yeah, that was kind of, well, I think that was part of that was we were moving and like kind of wanted to make sure that they were aware just in case, because I did have like a little bit of morning sickness at that one. But yeah, that was a very interesting time. It was scary and it was really like I was so uninformed. I think I was just like I was really uninformed about all of that. Yeah. So it was I think it was a lot of confusion on our part too, because we were like what's going on right now? Well, and of course, I was not quite sure what was happening. It was kind of like, okay, like, is this normal? And honestly, by the third, once you get, for me, it's like once we had, like, we went through an entire childbirth from finding out we were pregnant to actually having a baby in our arms 3 times. Yeah. By the third time, I was like, okay, I know what this is. I know what that is. I know what this feels like. Like, I'm aware. You're talking about like what your body's doing. Yeah. So like I fully understood the spectrum of like, for the most part, what my body was going to do. It wasn't new by like the second or third one. Right. It was a repeat thing. You're a seasoned vet. Yeah. So like so that very first experience was like, oh crap, like what does this mean? Like, are we gonna be able to have kids? Like, I'm terrified, like what is happening to me? Like, oh my God. Yeah. So anyways, so that happened. And we kind of went through that together. There was so many other things going on at that time too. We just moved. We were in the process of moving. Yeah. All that. So I guess part of why I'm starting this off on that note, which is kind of a little heavier than normal, is it's important to put that out there because I think a lot of women go through that and men also, because, you know, it's also something that affects the other parent. Yeah. But it's not uncommon for that to happen. And then for you to go on and have 3, 4, 5, 600 healthy babies. So 100? Yeah, 100. There was one lady that had like 100 babies somewhere in like Ukraine. Remember? Yeah, we looked that up. I think that was clickbait. Okay. Anyways, no, so I think that's really important to say, and you should never be ashamed of it. Like I know when we went through that, it was way more stressful on you. I think it was like I don't think that I had made any type of a like emotional bond. You know, like beyond having a pregnancy test that was positive, it wasn't like I was like, oh, we were picking out names and like, you know, it was just like, okay, we're started. And then it kind of ended so quickly. I wasn't really attached to the idea of like, this is a baby. Right. Which sounds kind of bad because it is. And, you know, part of me wonders like, what would it have been? Mm-hmm. But I think for Carly, it was a lot more emotionally taxing. I was focused on a lot of other things, and for her, it was like it kind of wrecked your world. It was a little bit. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to take, especially not that it matters at any time when you have a miscarriage, but the first one, it was like there were just so many questions. And like not to get into detail and put like people's personal stuff out there, but like your family had other similar things happen in the past that were like, could you even have kids? Yeah, my mom and dad actually ended up they were told by doctors that they wouldn't be able to have kids for a while. And
that was scary for me.
yeah.
Like when I knew that and then this happened, it was like, oh, we might be in a world of
I know, like,
not happiness here.
Yeah, I know there has been some like infertility questions in my mind too before that happened. And I was like, is this it? Like, is it not going to happen? Is this going
to be a broken record thing?
And it's scary and sad that does happen to people and that people are going through that right now. And but I guess I don't know if this is a hopeful message that like, you can feel that way and you can go through something like that and then, end up having healthy babies. So
yeah, don't let it prevent you to keep trying.
And have
if
hope.
You want to have a kid, if you're interested and you want to do it and you're, dedicated, it might take a long time, but it only takes one. Yeah. And then you could be off to where we are sitting here with 3 kids telling birth stories. So,
but yeah, anyways, I wanted to start that off because that's where our birth stories began. So on to a lighter note. And actually soon it was probably, was it the next month after that happened? I swear it went so fast. It was like 2 months after we
got lucky, and I think it was like within 2 months.
Yeah, it was like
we
2
were
months
actually
after.
pregnant, and it stuck.
And we were in. Let's see, we were in. We won't even. We don't need to talk about where we were. We'll just talk about the details of the pregnancy. So I had a little bit of morning sickness, like a little bit, and I can remember you went to work one day and I was like, it's the most confusing feeling. You're hungry, but your body's like, oh, I don't want that. And like, get that away from me. And you're like looking at food. You're like, why? This is normally what I eat. But like, why don't I'm like staring.
How far into being pregnant did you actually experience it?
So, okay.
Like for you.
It's weird because the first couple weeks, I would say that by like week 6 or 7, the first symptom that I experienced, and like jokingly when I get sick now and I get really tired, I'm like, shit, am I pregnant?
Yeah.
Like it's honestly, you like start to think about it really weird.
Here's a side note to all you dads, boyfriends, husbands out there. If you have babies with a woman, and once you get to the end of like, this is probably all we're going to get, she's very in tune with her body and she will blame anything onto you if any sickness comes up or like whatever. So
yeah, dude, it was
fair
weird.
Warning. That's a thing.
So the first major weird symptom that I experienced with Lila was being exhausted and not doing a thing. I'm talking waking up in the morning, like stepping out of bed and being like, I have to go back to sleep. It's the weirdest feeling. And you know me, and like most people that know me, I'm up and I'm like awake. Like I don't take naps. Like I'm not usually like a person who's like, oh, I need to rest, which is fine. Like if you need to rest, do it. But my body and my brain is like, no.
Yeah. It's like just go almost to an annoying level sometimes.
Annoyingly energetic all the time. Like I've always been like that. My mom and dad said I used to run everywhere constantly as a child. I'm still that way.
She still does.
I still do. So it's like, it was so, and I was like, okay, wow, this is what people are talking about when they're like, I'm tired. You just like want to go to sleep. Yeah. Forever. You're like,
you were a little irritable.
Yeah.
Like tired, but it was like,
I'm like,
don't mess with me at all until I am ready to be awake.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a very
I clearly remember that one.
Yeah. It's a very different experience. And then, on top of that, it's like, so that was like the first kind of wave of a symptom. And then the second wave is like that feeling where you're hungry, but you're nauseous at the same time. So and what's really funny is like, if you don't eat, you get nauseous. And if you do eat, you get nauseous. So it's like,
it's cruel.
It sucks. But I know a lot of people that have had it way worse than I have, where like they wake up, they throw up. The thought of food makes them throw up. I never, I guess I did a couple of times, but I never got to the point where I couldn't keep food down or it was concerning because some
people puke like all day long.
I think my sister-in-law, I'm pretty sure she took some type of medication for it or something, which I'm super thankful that I didn't have to end up doing that. Yeah. But people do. And it's hard to oh my gosh, your body's going through so many changes. But
did you have that with all three of our babies, or was it just Lila? Like, because I don't remember you being very sick with the others.
No, not at all. I had
like
zero.
Morning sickness.
Nope, I had zero with Lauren. I think I had very minimal with Adam.
Yeah.
I remember that wave with Adam now. It's coming back to me. I had, there was like, do you remember, there was like 1 or 2 days where I was like, I remember looking at you and I was like, I have to go lay down. Like, I just don't feel good. And this was before we knew we were pregnant. Like, that was before I knew. And I was like, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
Like, something's not right with me. Like, am I sick?
Like do we air out the
hold on. No, just
like Adam, like our youngest, our boy, he wasn't a mistake, but it wasn't like we intentionally.
We were just floating around, you know?
Well, I had like, my goal was to have 3 kids.
Okay. Hold
on. 2 years apart. And
Your
that's
goal.
Yeah. I mean, that's like what I was shooting for.
That's
like,
that's a little too.
Yeah. So
that's
like
a little weird, babe.
Like with our first kids, it was like very intentional, like the timing on it.
Yeah.
With Adam, it was like it wasn't an accident, but it was a happy accident that they were born like almost exactly 2 years apart.
We weren't being careful.
We weren't being as intentional, like with the timing.
And we also weren't being careful. That's the fun of it. You know, it just surprise. If you have a window of like.
Sorry, buddy. You were not an accident, buddy. If you're watching this like 30 years from now, just to be clear, we were hoping for number 3, a boy. And it just so happened that my OCD brain got to have them like exactly 2 years apart.
Yeah, because
so,
honestly, that kind of stuff does not happen to people if they, like, we did get very lucky. Yeah. But we ended up, so I had morning sickness with Lila. I remember, like, the nauseous feeling. Mm-hmm. Did not have any with Lauren.
Luckily.
0.
Yep.
And then a little bit with Adam. That tired, kind of weird feeling for like a few days or weeks.
Describe what it's like to go through the first time of like your body actually like changing.
Oh boy.
At what point? For me, I'm just going to say it. I find you highly attractive when you're pregnant. I don't know what it is. I think my wife is a smoking hot hottie when she's pregnant. And I'd be going like 7, 8, 9, 10 kids because she's a big old MILF when she's pregnant. That's what I think.
Thank you.
But I know like baby body stuff is different. So tell the people what it's like to have a human being grow inside your body and like you look like you have a pumpkin in your shirt.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. It's like you went to Meijer and you picked out a pumpkin and you put it in your shirt, tried to steal it.
Like at what point do you realize that it's going to become very inconvenient? Because I remember you going like, "Oh, this is fun," and then all of a sudden you're like, "Screw this! I can't lay on my stomach. I can't lay on my back."
For me, it was at about the 6-month mark.
Okay.
It's that last. There's like usually how a lot of, and I've heard this from a lot of people, it kind of looks like it's kind of like a bell curve.
Yeah.
You start out and you're kind of like, oh, this is a little rocky, like, oh, my body feels weird. And then you hit this point where you're like, I'm cruising, I'm pregnant, my morning sickness is gone. Usually around the first trimester. And like my morning sickness is gone. I can still kind of fit into my normal clothes. Like I'm not overly to the point where I'm like waddling and I have so much weight on my body. People can tell that I'm pregnant, so I don't just look like just bloated. So you have this really nice grace period where you're like, oh, I'm pregnant and it feels good. And everyone's like,
yeah,
yay. And then you hit this point where you start to sleep different. And weirdly enough, I used to be a stomach sleeper. Like I used to sleep on my stomach and like sometimes my back, but I used to sleep on my stomach. After I've had kids, still to this day, I sleep on my side. It like changed the way my brain works when I sleep. It's so weird. And you used
to roll around a lot.
I used to move so much.
Pre-babies, pre-pregnancy, you'd be all over the bed. And it's like you've gone into this like
I would go like training. Full burrito mode by the morning and I'd be like wrapped up in our blanket by myself.
And now you'll go to bed
and not move.
Like say like we get lucky and you sleep 8 hours, you'll wake up, like I'll look and you'll be in the exact same position.
It's so weird. It's so
It's
weird.
very weird.
Yeah, it changes your brain majorly when you have.
What does it feel like when your belly gets to the point where it's like stretched?
You know how
and you can feel the baby kicking and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, describe that.
So you know how we jokingly like you stop holding your abdominal muscles, just give up on life, and you just let it. It feels
Wait, are
like
you saying that about my abdominal muscles?
no, like when we jokingly walk around, I was like, look at my belly. Yeah, like we're picking on each other.
Yeah.
It feels like that, but you can't suck it in. So okay, what was your second question? You said
like, what is it? I mean, like, to me, I'll never experience it. Like every man is never going to experience like knowing
unless you're a seahorse
or you're Arnold Schwarzenegger. Didn't he have a baby?
What the hell?
I think there's a movie with him where he gets pregnant.
Oh wait, what?
I'm pretty sure it's called.
Are we playing
like, Junior?
Obama Llama right now?
No, I think it's Junior. Right? Is that right?
Oh,
Leave a
twins?
I don't know.
No, twins.
I think Arnold Schwarzenegger gets pregnant and he's a guy.
With the little guy that aren't the Danny DeVito?
I don't
twins.
know. Leave us a comment below and tell us who's right
Or
what it is. Anyway,
So
I will never experience this.
But seahorses will.
Like I will never
you're
have
a male
like
seahorse.
jugs that get bigger like
Jugs,
when I have baby.
ladies and gentlemen.
Is that the appropriate thing to
It
say?
is.
Boobs?
Milk jugs.
Breasts.
Breasts.
I just said jugs, boobs, and breasts within 5 seconds. Yeah, it's just a weird thing. Like, so for me to watch it, like
What does it feel like
can imagine
to feel it kicking?
when I feel it kicking.
Yeah.
So
Do you remember how adamant
yes.
I was at 13? I remember to this day, Lila at 13 weeks, I was like, babe, you have to feel this. I was so convinced that you could feel it. And you were like, I can't.
So I do remember, I don't remember which kid it was, but I do know it's the coolest thing ever as a dad. Like it becomes very real when you start watching the baby move and you can feel it because it's so cute. I remember with Lila, I was so excited because, you know, you'd make me sit there for like a half an hour with my hand in a spot and you'd be like, no, I promise you'll feel it. And I'm like, I can't feel it. But the one day
so bad.
where she either like moved a knee or whatever, and when I would push back, she would kick back. Like we were like
communicating.
I'd like push her back and she'd like push back, and it was like, oh my God, like I fell in love with my baby like right there, and I was like,
I know
she's in there for real.
Yeah.
Like everybody,
she's
there's
messing
really
with you.
a baby in there. But yeah, I mean, to like see it,
it's so cool.
when you see it, like when you see the elbow go all the way across, you know, or like the leg, it makes me feel uncomfortable for you. I'm like, that's going to rip your skin open.
No, it doesn't hurt at all. It feels like if somebody took their knuckle
right now,
and like went like that. It just feels like you got.
Just thinking about that for me right now gives me the creeps. I'm like,
dude.
Oh, I don't know if I could deal with it mentally.
If I've learned anything through all three of these processes, it's like the human body is amazing. Like,
yeah, it really is.
And I'm not even like mental, like remove your brain from even being cognizant or like comprehending anything that's going on. Like you could just be like, I'm just going about my day and my body's just doing its thing and I don't have to tell it to do anything. It's just doing it. Like it's to be in that is one of the most humbling, like amazing things to go through, because you're just like, I don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah,
like
it's like all on autopilot.
Yeah, it's so
and you're just
cool.
along for the ride.
It's so cool. It's so cool. So we're kind of bopping around right now, but I kind of like getting all of this like talked about, and then we can like go into the specifics
compare.
if we need
we'll be able to compare.
So it feels to feel your body changing and growing, like everything changes. Every single thing in your body. If your feet get bigger, your bones. So there is something.
I remember that.
There is a hormone called relaxin, I think, and anybody who's medically inclined, please correct me. I think there's a hormone called relaxin, and it does something to your joints or your muscles or something
doesn't it loosen your ligaments
it
or something?
loosens your ligaments to allow for your baby to basically come through your like hip pelvis passage, whatever. Yeah. So, but what that does is sometimes the old noggin there who releases the hormones didn't get right. It went right to my feet. So my feet are like a different size now.
Yeah, they look different. They do.
Your ribs kind of get a little bit wider. Your hips get wider for sure. And yeah, it's like your body literally just is designed to like do this thing. And it's like, okay, your baby's going to come out and we need to help it. So we're going to release all these hormones. But it's, being overly tired, the nauseous thing in the first trimester. And there's not, honestly, it's weird. I remember feeling this with Lila and feeling it a little bit with Lauren. And then like with Adam, by that time, I was like, okay, I know what's going on. But it being almost in awe, like with Lila, it was like, okay, we got the positive pregnancy test. I feel tired. I feel kind of nauseous. And then it went away. And there's this weird period where your body it retains a lot more water. It's creating, you have, oh God, I don't even remember what the percentage is, like 50% more blood, 75%, something crazy. Like your body's actually producing more blood. So you're circulating more blood in your body to basically keep the nutrients going to the baby through the umbilical cord and all that stuff. So you have so much extra weight. And
I remember you were drinking so much water.
I like couldn't stop drinking water.
Yeah, it was like at certain points I was like, where is it going? Like you would drink jugs of water. I just said jugs for the second time, but it's not the same thing. Yeah, like jugs and jugs and jugs of water.
So much.
Yeah.
But it's like, and then that's the other thing. You get really dehydrated really easily because the baby is taking everything and your body functions and all the things and your heart rate's slightly elevated, I think, and all this stuff. So it's like, you're constantly in need of something. Yeah. And I can't remember where I was going with that, but basically, you were just talking about how the second trimester, you start to like, your body starts to take on water. That's right. So the second trimester is interesting because there's not like, once you get past all the weird, like emotional stuff in the beginning and whatever, you kind of are at this point where you're like, wait, am I still pregnant? It's weird, but it's like, you can't feel the baby move yet majorly.
Well, by this point you've been pregnant for like 4, 5, 6 months.
It's like 3 months. The first trimester is like 3 or 4. Or 3. So or 2.5, 3. Yeah. So your first trimester, you're going through all the weird, like, okay, your body's like getting ready. And then, there's like this kind of weird lull where you're like, am I even still pregnant? Like, this is weird. Like, I don't look pregnant. I don't, like, my body's kind of feeling like bloated.
This is like big giant belly.
So your belly will like get a little bit bigger. And then like the next day it'll be small. And you're like, what is going on? It's weird. Yeah. And that happened with all 3. I remember that. And I'm like, why? So, but then after that point, then you start to feel, or I started to feel the movements and the kicking and then it started to get a little bit bigger, like couldn't zip up my pants as much anymore. Like
maternity clothes start to show up in the closet.
Yep. Like that kind of stuff. So, and then that's where it kind of gets fun. Like I said, like people start to notice that you're pregnant, not just bloated. Like you can feel the baby.
Do you like it when strangers come up and touch you?
Did that happen whenever you were you with me when that happened?
Yeah.
A couple times.
The old ladies.
Dear America, this is a PSA.
Is it okay to touch strangers even if they're pregnant?
Never. It is never okay. It is okay to ask. It is okay. I'm not offended. Some people are offended by even asking. I'm okay if you ask because then that gives me the opportunity to say no, thank you.
That is the weirdest thing about any pregnant, like out of anything when someone is pregnant.
Who the hell?
The fact that it's typically older ladies.
It is. And it's hard to say.
Grandmothers.
Yeah. And it's hard to be
and it's innocent. It's innocent. And they're just like happy for you.
Yeah.
But to have a stranger just walk up to you and put basically like their hand inside your coat.
On your unborn child.
Yeah. That's weird. That weirded me out.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
It was weird for me, and they didn't even touch me at all.
Yeah.
That's how weird it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should have karate chopped. That was your one opportunity to karate chop somebody.
I'm not going to karate chop an old lady.
That would be awesome. Just karate chop.
Don't touch my baby.
I'm sure it's happened. So that was very interesting. But yeah, so you get to that point where you're like, and in all 3, you get to that point, you're like, I'm pregnant. This is fun. This is awesome. Hooray. Yeah. And it's always awesome. Always. But it's like, Sometimes it's not also, but you get to that point where you're like, yay, I'm pregnant, and you can tell I'm pregnant, and this is blissful, and there's nothing hurting, and everything's fine, and I can kind of sleep. I don't have to pee every 5 minutes. I'm good. And then the third trimester
reality
hits.
sets in.
The third trimester hits.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you, Matthew. And
playtime is fucking over.
It's over. Thank you for centering yourself there. Auto sense.
Yeah.
So you get to the third trimester, and for all three of our babies, let's see, there were each child had a different thing in the third trimester that was weird. Okay. So the first child, Lila, my rib cage felt like it was breaking.
Ooh, yeah, she was pushing up. Do you remember that? Yeah, I remember you going like this and like pushing the baby down. I had out of your ribs. So much pain in my right upper like abdominal rib area. I had ice packs on it for a while. Oh yeah. By the end of it, I was having at the end of the night, I don't know if it was just like based on like movement or pressure or whatever, I had ice packs. I would like sit as stretched out as I could with an ice pack on my rib. I remember that. And I was like, okay, this can't be normal. I think I went in at one point and I told whole thing when that was going on. I was like, it was the whole, like your whole right side was just like tight, big, and your left side almost didn't even look like you were pregnant. That's how lopsided it was.
Found out later that was her butt. Her butt was like up, and then her little head was like down, and it was like diagonal. Yeah, and it was
sitting sideways in there.
Well, and I think I have a personal theory. I have no idea if this is medically accurate at all, but I think the first one kind of paves the way. So like kind of like
paves the way
in all areas of your body. Your uterus gets stretched out to the point where it can no longer be stretched. Like all the things. We warned you. There was a disclaimer in the beginning of this podcast. So it's like all of these things that are occurring. The first one's like, yo, I'm going to just do it.
Yeah. Like from
my theory
seeing the baby come out, there ain't no going back.
Don't go that far yet. Oh, sorry. You have no pants on, by the way. He doesn't have pants on.
I'm podcasting this is his leg. Ready? With sans pants today. This evening.
So my theory is that first baby kind of like just gets everything all nice and stretched out. Okay. So I think that's why my rib was hurting so bad, because it was like
the first stretch.
My body was so like normal, and it was like just stretching.
And this is the third trimester. So you're in the red zone at this point.
Yeah.
Like
red zone.
Yeah.
So that was
your body goes into like full metamorphosis.
Yes.
Like
I'm a butterfly.
Preparing to
I am a butterfly.
Eject a human being out of your crotch.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it is.
It is. It's exactly
what
happens.
That is exactly what it is.
That's what happens.
Okay.
At the end. So.
And just to clarify, we did not. Yeah. So just to clarify, we did not do a C-section with any of our babies. So the birthing stories are all going to be vaginal.
Oh, you said it. What time? 36 minutes in and you use the word.
I almost didn't. I tried real hard right there to come up with a different word, but that's what it is.
What would you call it? If you had to make up a word for that, what would you call it?
I don't know. I failed to come up with that, so I just said vaginal.
A ditch.
Okay.
Anyways, we're getting off track here.
Okay, so ribs.
We're going off into the ditch here.
Ribs are hurting. You are plumper than plump.
Plumper than plump.
Your body has taken on 18 gallons of water.
At all times.
And you're now to the point where you're like, I'm ready to have this baby.
What's happening? Now what?
Yeah, now what happens?
So backtracking just slightly. So I'm gonna go third trimester with all kids. Lila was the rib pain. Lauren was
like easy.
She was easy. Even remember. I know, she was easy. Lauren, the worst thing with Lauren was sleeping in the third trimester. That was the worst. I remember her being like, I felt so tired all the time, but like could not sleep. And it probably was also due to we had a 2-year-old, a toddler. So that is like, I don't know if I can differentiate that from being the pregnancy or like having a child and also being pregnant. So whatever. Lauren was the easiest. Love you, Lauren.
Thanks, Lauren. We needed that.
If you're watching this later. So Lauren was the easiest. And then Adam, I had that awful pelvic pubic bone separation. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
I could like, I would stand up and be like, oh God, I couldn't take a step. I had to like stand there for a second, and it was, that was almost worse than any of it.
It's like when you tweak an ankle.
Yes. It feels exactly like that.
Your hips.
And you like can't step down on it.
I do remember that.
It was so, and it was for like,
the relaxin or whatever it was. Yeah. Like really.
Because I remember asking the doctor about that, and they were like, yeah, that's normal. It's just your ligaments stretching and moving and all this stuff. And I was like, oh God. It took my breath away. It would take my breath away. And Matt would look at me like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I can't move right now. Like this hurts so bad to even take a step sideways or forward to go up the stairs. Oh my God. So, but that, and again, like all of these things probably lasted, like with Lila's, like the rib pain was probably like on and off for a couple weeks. Adam, same thing. It was like a couple weeks on and off that, and then it just went away. Like magically, you're like, where did that go? I thought that was going to be here for the whole time. Nope, just like went away.
Did any of our babies carry? I seem to remember something about one of the babies being like kind of twisted or upside down. No. Was there ever a time where like they were sideways? Because I remember like when you'd go in for your checkups, the nurse or whatever, the doctor would like move the baby inside your belly.
That was Lila, yeah.
That was freaky. He'd like do like a chiropractor move on you and like shift the baby and then be like, okay, everything's good.
Yeah, that was Lila.
But none of our kids were like upside down or like breacher. Yeah.
Nope. Okay. None of our children were breech. Like we got so lucky.
Yeah.
So lucky because that stuff happens. So I did it again. So next, moving on.
So let's talk about the actual birth of Lila. Like let's talk about how you knew it was starting, like what your body told you. Like like if you're a new mom and you're watching this, you're about to get like educated on this.
Oh shoot, I can't educate anybody.
Like how do you know when labor hit for you?
Well, I'm going to share my personal experience because I think everybody is slightly different or vastly different.
Yeah.
But men and ladies who don't want to hear this part, thank you for watching. If you do,
time to check out for the graphic nature.
Thank you for sticking around because this is where it gets exciting.
Yeah.
So Lila actually came almost 4 weeks early. Don't know if it was my dating that was off, because when you go into the doctor and you're like, hey, I'm pregnant, or hey, am I pregnant?
Explain the dating real quick.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So like when you go into the doctor and you're like, hey, I think I'm pregnant, or I have a positive pregnancy test at home. They'll ask you what the first day of your last menstrual cycle is, which indicates when the baby most likely was conceived, and then like at what point from 9 or 10 months from that point does the baby show itself, basically. Like when does the baby come out? So I don't know. And again, with Lila, we had that miscarriage soon before that, so like sorry, but I never had like a normal cycle after that until it was so weird. Like it was like miscarriage, like kind of a weird cycle, and then Lila. So I didn't really I think I might have been off a little bit.
For the guys watching this,
don't explain.
A cycle means a period. I went years of my life not knowing what she was talking about.
Really?
It means a period.
Me?
I'm just clarifying for the guys out there that might not know what you're talking about.
You're so kind. That's so nice of you.
Means period.
We'll link the description of cycle and below. So, yeah. I don't know if Lila was... So Lila was basically 4 weeks early, according to when I told the people my last menstrual cycle was, and when they told me my due date was going to be.
Which is important, because when they date you...
They base it off of...
Every appointment you go, like the first ones are like every month or whatever. And then when you get within like 2 months, it's like every week or whatever. And then towards the end, they're checking you very often.
Yeah.
Right. So if we were a month off, like they were thinking we had another month before the baby was going to be born. So they were doing different things in the process.
Yeah.
So if the dating was off and Lila was born on time, they were actually treating it differently than they probably would have.
Yeah.
So we would have been going every week, not every 2 weeks,
Right.
like before she was born. So
Yeah,
it is important to understand that.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. So she was due December 11th, which is actually 2 days before your birthday. And we were like, oh, we're going to get a Matt birthday.
Yeah.
So she was due December 11th. She ended up being born November 14th. So it was just under 4 weeks. It was like 3 weeks and 5 days or whatever it is.
She was early.
Yeah.
Or she was earlier than expected.
3 weeks, 1 day.
Something
I can't
like
remember. 3 weeks, 2 days.
Yeah.
I used to have it. So, that was interesting. So she was early. So we were not expecting. We were thinking we had another month.
You remember.
I know what you're going to say.
What?
Oh, what?
I was going to. So, boy, this is where it gets graphic I don't know how I feel about saying all these things on the internet, but here we go.
We're here.
So we went into the doctor because we thought that the mucus plug came out, or part of it came out. Something like came out of Carly, and she was like, I think this might be like, is this labor starting?
Do you remember that? Yeah, side note to this, we went to a birthing class together and they talked about all of this stuff. And we can talk about the funny story that was there too. So we talked about all this stuff, and like they tell you that some women have it, some women don't. And some people don't even like see it, and some people see it very much so. And what happens is basically your cervix is thinning, and the entire time during your pregnancy, you have what your body forms is called a mucus plug, which is basically like...
It's like a cork.
It protects all the things from going in and anything from coming out while your baby's in there. Yeah, it's the cork.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure if mine... We lost every single follower that we had that was male.
No.
You realize that?
No.
Every single one of them.
No. There's a bunch of dads out there who'll be like, yeah, we went through the same thing.
And if not... Anyways.
There's going to be a lot of guys that are not dads yet, and they're going to be like, nope, unsubscribe.
So so that I think I thought that came out. We were
part of
so unsure. Yeah.
So we went in.
Yeah.
I'll describe this.
This is interesting though. This is so interesting. So she came early, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember what we did the day before we had Lila?
No.
My OCD weird brain, my like anxiety ridden brain.
You put together the bag.
Hospital bag and installed the car seat the day before.
So this is weird. So we thought the plug.
If your body doesn't know what really is happening, that's what happens.
Yeah, that was like motherly instinct.
That was
so we
weird.
went into the doctor, and not saying that this was like the doctor's deal or not. Our doctors were awesome.
Oh my gosh, we
went
should
in,
spend a whole 5 minutes talking about how awesome our doctors were.
We went in and we said, hey, like we think this came out. We described it. It was like a mucusy looking little thing. And the guy like checked Carly, and there was no, like the water didn't break. Nothing was like leaking. There was no fluid, which is like a telltale sign that you're about to go into labor.
They actually did a swab test too, which is they check for neutral, oh gosh, I'm going to screw it up.
Me.
They basically check for amniotic fluid, which indicates that the bag has broken. Your amniotic sac is broken or anything like that.
The baby is in a big sac. And when that sac breaks, that's what your water breaking is. And when that happens, you're going to have a baby.
It's like a big old water balloon.
Yeah. So we went in, the doctor checked, basically said, just relax. You're not going into labor. You've got 4 more weeks. Yep. I'll see you in a week.
Yep.
And within 48 hours, she was born. So it was part of the mucus plug coming out. And in all fairness, they were on this track where they were like, you're 4 weeks early.
And no shade to them.
Everything's good. There's no signs of like, early labor.
Yeah.
So it just so happened that it came out weird.
Yeah, no shade to them. I think they did everything that they could have done. They checked me over and there was nothing bleeding or nothing like majorly wrong happening. And it felt normal. She was moving. They checked her heart rate, all that stuff.
Yep.
So there was nothing that they would have done to keep me. And oftentimes, even if you're like 5 centimeters dilated and you're like having contractions, they're like, you should go home for a few hours.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, it wouldn't have made a difference either way, even if it.
And you didn't have any type of.
I wasn't high risk. There was
your cervix wasn't open at all.
Right. Yeah, there was no dilation.
Dilation, yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. So that was funny. That was an interesting. So we did that. We went home and I was like, and of course, it's so funny because I am typically a person who will like make stuff up in my mind and then roll with it. Like, this has to be what it is. And a lot of times I'm way wrong, but sometimes I'm right. And I remember telling Matt, I was like, I just feel like I'm like, this is weird. And then, heeding the doctor's advice, Matt was like, just be quiet. And I was like, no. Like, this feels weird. Something's weird. But we both he kind of talked me out of it, which is, I'm thankful for you doing that because it calmed me down a lot more.
You're talking with the mucus plug.
What I thought was, yeah.
So I will fully open up on this one.
Uh-oh.
Because I was there with Carly when the doctor was like, chill out. You got another month, come back in a week. So 2 days later, Carly wakes up at 5 a.m. and she's like, babe, I think I'm going into labor. And like from her first kind of panicky, oh, what's going on? I was like, oh my gosh, it's 5 a.m. I'm not getting up. I'm not going into the doctor to have them tell me everything's good and, just go back home.
Yeah.
So I very convincingly talked her into just laying back down, going back to sleep. I'm like, you're fine. Like, please don't do this. Chill out.
Again, in fairness to Matt, and to myself, this is the first time we've gone through it. So a lot of times you can feel like you're going into labor and you're having what is called Braxton Hicks contractions, which are basically preparation contractions that your uterus does to prepare it for giving birth. And they feel like the real thing sometimes. And I was having those and I was like, but I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh my God, what is this? So yeah, anyways, in fairness to you.
So I talked her into going back to sleep. She laid down and when you woke up from that, you were like, we're having a baby. We need to go.
Oh, wait. Did I tell you that I thought my water broke before you told me that or after?
No. So you were like, I think my water is breaking.
Yeah.
And I was like, just stop. Please let me go back to sleep.
It ended up being a partial tear or rip.
Right. Your water was starting to break. It was. And I was a jerk and I was like, please go back to sleep.
I was like, yeah, okay.
So what time was that? Because we slept in that day until...
It wasn't only you. Do you remember what the lady at the birth story or the birth class told us? She told us it was 511 is the thing. Right. It's like you have to wait for each contraction to be 5 minutes apart for a minute long for with
a minute break in
between or something. Yeah. It was like,
what is it?
It's 5 minutes.
It's when you hit 5 minutes apart from the start of your contraction to the next one.
Yeah.
You need to be going to the hospital.
Yeah. So,
and you were timing them because you were started to have what we thought were Braxton Hicks.
Yeah.
But we thought we were way early.
Yeah.
So we were like, this is 4 weeks early.
There's no way that this could be a thing.
And I'm like, just go back to sleep. Stop. Stop harassing me with this whole fake baby thing.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and I don't blame you because I was like, man, and of course I'm talking myself into oh, this is real. Something's going on. You kind of get into a little bit of a panic. I did. I got into a panic mode at the last few weeks.
Your body was getting ready to go into labor.
Well, and you can just sense that something's happening and you kind of get a little on edge a little bit and you're like, okay, do I need to I guess in cave people terms, you'd have to be like, do I need to find a cave and get some leaves and get ready to sit? I don't, it's my brain goes into okay, what do I need to do to prepare?
But when you woke up the second time, after you went back and slept for a while,
it hurt.
You were like, ow, ow, ow.
Oh, no.
And you were like, I think my water just broke.
Yes.
And I'm like, are you having contractions? And you were like, yeah, they're like 5 minutes apart. I'm like, holy crap, let's go.
Well, my water never fully broke with Lila ever. It got to that point where it kind of was like, they called it a trickle. It was like just kind of trickling or whatever. Oh, it's all coming back to me. And it was, so we grabbed the hospital bag.
Which we didn't have like anything.
I started to get it ready the day before, and I started to
we went to a whole big birthing class, and we had all these things like bouncing balls and all this shit, and we didn't have any of it.
Didn't bring any of it
because we were like, we're a month out.
Yeah. So for what it was worth, we threw some stuff in a bag, and
I was supposed to get a burrito.
We didn't go to Qdoba.
That what they told us, they were like, dads,
they did
get a full meal before you go, because you're going to be like,
hungry.
The number one man. You're going to have to run and do all the things for like,
I appreciate that they encouraged the dads or the partner or whoever was going to be with the woman giving birth to be hydrated and full and energized and as like rested as you possibly can, because like to be that person, support person, like you kind of do. If you're tired too, it just sucks all around.
So they're like, if your job is to be the hype man for the next 24 hours, you better be well fed. So I appreciate that. We talked about it, and Carly's like, and my favorite thing, is a big old Qdoba burrito. If I'm going to be like full, so we had.
What if our picture at the end was just of you holding like a burrito in your arms?
So we had like a 25-minute drive. And by the time we got stuff around, I'm trying to remember what time it was. It's not really important, but she had already been sleeping.
It was around 8 or 9.
5 hours, probably longer than she should have. And we get up to I remember this so clearly. We got up to an intersection where I could turn left to go to Qdoba, or I could turn right to go to the hospital. And we got there, and Carly's like, oh, I'm like in so much pain. And I looked at her, I was like, do I have time to go to Qdoba? And you were like, go to the hospital. I'm like, oh, I was so sad. So we get to the hospital. We get checked in. And then I'm trying to remember. We
went into triage.
Yeah, we went into a room where they like started to check you, right? Mm-hmm. And then was this the one? Mm-hmm. Which is what happened with Lila? So
with Lila, I don't know if I want to.
Don't go into too much detail.
Yeah.
But just
so
like
basically,
high level.
So basically, the nurse that checked me before. So what they do is they will take you into triage when you first get there, assuming you're not actually pushing a baby out when you're coming to the hospital. Foreshadowing. They get you. They get you and they check you. They check your blood pressure. They check the baby's heart rate. They check all of that stuff, and then they do what they call, oh man, I'm totally going to screw this up. I know that there's all these correct terms for this, but they do like a manual check. So they check all of their like number things and all of their measurements. And then they do an actual physical examination where they take a fingertip is usually how they indicate it. It's like this is in your cervix. So a fingertip, I think, is like
for the guys
1
out there,
centimeter,
the nurse inserts a finger into the woman's vagina and feels what's going on.
Oh,
honey, you have to understand. I was
trying to be so sugar-coaty.
Yeah, but like if I was watching this before babies, I wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about.
They all unsubscribed a long time ago, honey. They're gone.
We'll start from scratch. So yes, that is what they do. They actually have to feel with their hand like what is going on up in there. Yes.
So the lady that checked me first, she said, was like, okay, you're at like 1 centimeter, but you're having pretty strong contractions. Like, that's interesting. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll just come.
Keep in mind, they think you're 4 weeks early.
Right. So they're like, okay, we'll just keep checking in. And what happens is when you're in triage and you're hooked up to all of the monitors, there's a nurse outside who's not in your room directly, but she's sitting in front of like 4 reciprocating monitors that is showing what's happening on the screen. So you can see the intensity of the contractions, how long that they last, like the baby's heart rate, all that stuff. So they're constantly monitoring this, and then they're coming in and like doing manual checks. So what she did was she came in, did the check, and then was like, the manual check. She's like, okay, everything looks fine. Like, just, you're here, just wait it out. We'll see if we're going to keep you. Like if if you're continuing to have strong contractions, we'll keep you and we'll go from there. If not, then, we'll let you go back home because you're a little early. And I was like, okay, whatever. This is a little like, and by this point, I had started to do the breathing techniques that they had talked about, and I had started
You looked like you were in pain.
It was a lot. It was a lot of pressure and and I was like, and what was weird, and now looking back on this, my instinct was right. What was weird was I was like, this doesn't feel like nothing. And they're acting, and I remember so specifically being like, I am so screwed if this is nothing.
Yeah, we were sitting in this room. No. We were sitting in this room. Carly's on this table, and she's like really looking like she's kind of uncomfortable, and she's like, she keeps like holding her belly, and she's like closing her eyes, and she's like, like doing this thing. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, she better man up. Like, you better man up, because if this is like the early, like not even labor stuff, it's gonna like destroy you. So I was saying like, babe, like be strong, take deep breaths. And I was doing the things, and I'm like, trying to help her through it. But the first check was only like 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters, right? That's what they said.
By this point, I was terrified because they just kept acting like this so is no
your
big
cervix
deal.
Was starting to dilate.
Yes.
But it could have been like nothing.
Yeah.
Like, because some women have like 1 to 2 centimeters, and they're just like that for like a month.
Yeah.
So when we get there, they manually check Carly, and they're like, okay, nothing major. And within this time, we're sitting there for like an hour. It was like an hour. And I remember going like, trying to talk Carly into like, be strong, be brave, something will happen.
Yeah.
And they don't have a bunch of stuff hooked up to her. Like, she's just sitting on a table.
Yeah, they didn't at that point.
You weren't hooked up to like monitors or anything.
Yeah,
I remember just being like, honey, you're going to be okay. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, like she's kind of a wimp.
I started to really question
I'm like,
that also. Because, and I like, my pain tolerance is high. I have a pretty high pain tolerance. So I was, I think we started to maybe say this, but when we first got pregnant and started to talk to doctors and nurses and stuff, and like you go into the checks as you get closer to the birth, they ask you, like, what are your wishes? Do you want an epidural? Do you want, the lights off? Do you want no epidural? Do you want people in the room? Do you not want people in the room?
Explain what an epidural is.
An epidural is when they put basically a spinal block into
like
your lower spine, and it blocks the pain from, I think, typically your lower half down into like your legs. Sometimes I think you can do something called a walking epidural, which is basically like it doesn't numb your legs, but it really focuses on one area. I'm
just
not
to
totally
be clear,
sure though.
We are not experts in this because we didn't get the chance to even do it.
No.
Like, and we wanted to do it without, I say we, like I had to do any part of it.
Well, no, it is. And that's important to mention because the decision was made basically like you were going to have to get your hand crushed if this was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's like you have to be mentally prepared.
Yeah. And to support your partner with what they want also.
So with Lila, we had talked about it and we're like, if we can do it, let's try to do it, without the epidural.
Yeah. And I think they asked too, they said, at what point do you feel like on a scale from 1 to 10, do you remember they asked me that? They said on a scale from 1 to 10, at what point do you feel like you need to stop to reevaluate? And I was like, an 8.
Yeah.
I mean, 8. And the lady goes, just so you know, an 8 is like you're having a baby. And I was like, well, okay then.
There's no option at that point.
Never mind.
Yeah.
So, but what she said was, she goes, that's good because it sounds like you're confident that you can, handle a lot of pain. And I was like, I mean, I hope so. I have no idea. I've never done this before. I don't know. I'm just answering it based on what I think. Yeah. So it was weird.
So we're like, oh yeah. We're going to do it without the epidural. And I'm sitting here watching her on this table, like squirm around like she's about to die. And
when they're
like,
telling us that I'm at 1 centimeter.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, you're not dilated. You're not even in labor. Like, this isn't real. And you're like, I'm watching her go like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, this is not going to be good.
So this is what happened. And this is, thank goodness that I wasn't going through what I thought I was going through and it not be what it was. So what happened was they were checking my cervix and it was at a consistent number the whole time. And then all of a sudden, and I think this can happen in multiple women, is like, your cervical region can kind of pop it just pops right on open. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it like is a gradual thing, and sometimes it can go from 0 to 8 in really, really fast, and it's very painful, and it's not fun to go through. And actually, a lady that I babysat for, who is a labor and delivery nurse, told me about that when I was pregnant. She said, just so you know, this can happen. And I was like, oh, weird. I never would have thought about that. And she's like, yeah, it like happens to some people. And I was like, okay, good to know.
So typically though, labor and that process can take
a long
hours.
Time.
It can go, you can be like 0. So dilation typically, should I be talking about this?
I love that.
From what I know, dilation goes from like 0 to 10 basically.
Yeah.
And 10 is about like that. I think
10 is,
or it's like 3. I don't know. Anyway, so when you're at 0 or 1,
baby head.
Yeah, when you're at 0,
you have an actual get it props.
I don't have pants on.
Oh, I'll get it.
Okay,
hold on. It'll be the thumbnail. Oh, it's right there. Hold on, I gotta unconnect.
Yeah, just flop that thing off. Okay, so dilation occurs over a gradual period of time, and you go from like 0 to 10 basically is when you're giving birth, or like 8, 9. You're in that range of like there's a baby coming out, and
I feel like we really need to accentuate the fact that we are not medical professionals, and we are just speaking from our own experience. Me too, though, included.
Yeah. So when we get there with Lila, she's at like 1 or 2 or whatever it was. So 2 centimeters.
That's 10 centimeters.
Yeah, dude.
What?
So 2 centimeters, just to show you.
Look at us using props.
Like from the end of this to there. So like just a fingertip, basically. In the hour that you were sitting on that table, and I was thinking how big of a wimp you were, and oh my gosh, we're in so much trouble. She went from 2 to, I believe they said 8, which is like a full labor.
Yeah.
Like you basically went through the full labor.
The entire thing. And
completely unhooked. While the nurse, like, she checked you, she walked out, and they were like waiting to see. They're thinking probably, oh, it'll happen in 24 hours or it'll happen whatever. The lady walks back in. So keep in mind, from like here to there is full dilated. So she went from, is it called transition?
Mm-hmm.
From
transition is between like 8
to 8.
Well, no, transition. When you transition, that's when your baby's head is actually going through your pelvis.
Yeah.
That's like 8 to 10 centimeters, I think.
So I'll just say from my perspective, so I'm sitting in there and we're waiting. The nurse walks back in.
The lady at the birthing class goes, "Dads," and there were a couple like moms with their moms too. She was like, "Support people. You will know when transition happens.
Yeah,
you will know." And we were all like, "Okay, whatever."
Yeah.
And then Matt was like, "I get it now."
So she walked in. And she goes, I remember this. She goes, "How you feeling? Like totally relaxed. How you feeling?"
I changed my strategy too. I went from being tight and closed and my eyes closed.
I was like, you gotta relax.
It was so weird because in between contractions, you have a moment to breathe. I remember being like, okay, I'm not going to tense my muscles up. And it made it better. It was weird because we got to a point where we were in a rhythm. Yeah. Your instant reaction is to like clench up and close your eyes and like fight the pain. But it's the weirdest phenomenon. If you just like let your body feel the pain, it like makes it better. I don't know how to explain it.
So for an hour, I'm going like, okay, T, take deep breaths, like relax, honey, like relax.
1 centimeter.
Yeah, I'm like, you got to chill out, relax. So she's like totally relaxed. This nurse walks back in. She goes, "How we doing?" And she goes, "Okay, I'm going to check you again." I've never seen a woman's face, this nurse, put her hand in there, immediately pull it out, immediately walk out, and I heard her go, "She's at 8, she's at 8." And I'm like, no, we didn't eat anything. I'm hungry. Like, I didn't have Qdoba. She didn't eat anything. Can we do that now? And they, like, this team of nurses flies into this room, and they start, clicking the bed, like unlocking the wheels. And she goes, "Are you ready, Dad? We're going to have a baby." And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
We went from like...
They left me in the room. Listen, these nurses came in and got Carly so fast that I was sitting on the bench trying to put my shoes on and like just pick up 2 coats and a bag. They were gone. They were out of the room, down the hall. I walked out and I'm like, which way did they go?
Where did they go?
That's how fast they were. She went from going like, okay, where are you at? Holy crap, get this girl like on a bed. Like basically what happened was she felt up there and she could feel Lila's head.
Yeah.
That's how close she was to having a baby.
Yep. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh man, this is going to be
My adrenaline
rough.
is flowing right
I
now.
know.
Because I'm like reliving this.
I know.
It was freaky.
See, we're putting it all on the table. Mine is too. I'm getting like antsy in
I'm
my
like
seat.
shaking.
I know.
Thinking about how scary, like, yeah.
I'm getting antsy in
It
my
was
seat.
go time. It went from that to go time in a split second.
We went down. I fondly remember the cool hospital hallway air blowing on my face as they went 90 miles an hour down it. And I was like, and it's weird too, because when you're, oh my gosh, I've never, knock on wood, I've never had a major medical issue in my life where I've had to spend a lot of time in a hospital being cared for. There's been like a couple little things here and there, but like I've never been able to fully experience nurses and nursing and doctors to the extent that we experienced it at this point. So to see like the magic of what nurses and doctors and medical professionals do and how swiftly they're act.
Like a SWAT team.
It's
like watching a SWAT team
magicians. You don't know where they're coming from or where they are, but they just I felt like I was on a magic carpet.
I don't even know how they were communicating, because it's like when you piss off a bee and then like 50 bees show up. You're like, where the fuck did these bees come from? It's the same thing, but they're all like there to help you.
Yeah.
Not sting you.
Some of them have pokey things.
Yeah.
But no, it's so funny because like they flew me down. And I was like, my emotional support human's not with me. Like oh my God, I'm
when
dying.
I say
What's
I
happening?
ran down the hallway, I actually physically ran down the hallway to try to stay up with them.
You beat the doctor. That was the irony. So they called. So what happens is like there's a doctor on call that's in the hospital. Usually he's doing like rounds, or he or she is checking other people or whatever, but they're in the general vicinity where if something like that did occur, they would be there quickly.
Our doctor was not even in the building.
Our doctor was, no, he was.
No, he was not.
He wasn't?
No, he was not, because they called and they said, where is doctor? I won't like throw out names.
Yeah.
Where's the doctor? Where's the doctor? And I heard a nurse, as they're like stripping you out of your clothes.
Oh, that's right.
I heard a nurse say, I've got him on his cell phone. He's getting in the car right now. And I said, holy shit, we don't have a doctor. This baby's like coming out right now.
So, and what's kind of cool, so should we say where? Doesn't matter. So we
delivered our first two in Sparrow.
Yeah.
Sparrow Hospital in Lansing.
Yeah.
Fantastic staff.
So they're a teaching hospital, I believe, with MSD maybe?
I don't know if they are or not.
Do you remember the student or the resident that actually was delivering Lila also?
Yes.
Our main doctor who we've been meeting
Right.
with the entire time, which you usually, or you rotate between like a group of doctors, but I think we had a rotation of doctors, and we were hoping that it was going to be the guy that we had been seeing. He was amazing. Like explained everything
guy.
so well, like was so calm, literally even through like the entire birth. He just like, at one point when I was like pushing,
losing my mind, and he was like, hi guys.
What are you guys doing tomorrow night? And I was like, oh my God, what's happening?
That man.
Oh, he's awesome. So awesome.
Until I experienced it, I didn't quite understand what it was like to see someone in a group of people that are all frantically running around, like to be considered like the rock of a team, like the leader of a team, and to lead by example. He was like as cool, calm, and collected as anybody I've ever seen. He was probably nervous a little bit, but he's like, I'm not gonna
He's been through that so many times.
Yeah, he just walked up and he's like calmly talked to us.
He put his hand on I remember him going, how you doing? And I was like, in the moment, it was so comforting to feel somebody who was just like, you're good. I know it feels like you're not good, but you're good.
He didn't even end up actually doing the delivery. Like he was
that's
there.
what I'm saying. He was like it was a teaching, the resident, he was observing. So the resident, I think that's how it works, where like if a resident's there, you have to have like a main, or by law, or like, I don't know if it's a law or a policy or whatever with the hospital, but he just sat there. I remember a few times looking up, and he had his hands behind his back.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's such a power move.
It
made me feel so comfortable, and like nothing was wrong. But like he just had his hands behind his back, because I'm sure for him, he like his instinct is to like reach forward. I don't know what it was.
He came in, and I remember he was so calm, and he said, how are you guys doing? And we, Carly's like, oh my God, she's like in pain, like, like she's sweating, like they're taking her clothes off.
You-
And I'm like, what is happening? And he looked over at me and he goes, are you ready, Dad? We're going to have a baby. And I was like, okay. I was like,
I'm
cool,
having like
great.
ghost contraction feelings. Like
He was so like, he was like, this is fine.
Everything's
like,
good.
He was like, it just came a little bit fast. She's coming out. Like we're all good. Like
when you hear that though, and I remember hearing that conversation because and I remember so frequently asking, is she okay? Is everything okay? Because when people in any capacity where it doesn't matter if you're having a baby, or if you're walking down the street, if you're in a grocery store, when there's a lot of people moving really fast around you, you feel like something's wrong.
Right.
Like you don't know if it's okay. You feel like what's going on? Is everything okay? So I remember asking like, is she okay? Is she okay? And everyone was like, yep, she's fine. This is just normal. And I'm like, my brain's telling me that it's not normal. You guys are running around like crazy people. But like that is normal when it happens that fast and it happens. But do you remember I had like little bugaboos at the moment of the birth with each kid. Do you remember what my weird request was with Lila? What I kept asking for?
Yeah, you were like, I'm hot. And there was nothing in the room. So I reached over, there was a box of tissues and I start fanning her like, yeah, I was going like this. I'm like, is this good? And I remember the older woman nurse went over and was like, you better step it up, Dad.
She did.
That's not cutting it. And I was like, I didn't know what to do.
That was so funny. I was so, oh my gosh, in that moment, I wanted to rip your head off. And I could not control that. All I wanted to do was like hit that box of Kleenex out of your hand so hard. I asked for wet washcloths though.
Yeah,
she brought a
cold,
bin
damp
of
washcloths.
cold, wet washcloths, like in ice, because the only thing that like gave me any sense of relief and comfort from feeling. Okay, so here's you're asking how it feels when you get sick with the flu and you feel like you're gonna throw up and you get that clammy, sweaty, like oh, I'm so uncomfortable right now feeling.
I feel like that right now.
That times 10 and it doesn't go away after you do something. And it was this, I felt like this rush of blood to my face and super hot and I was like, oh my God, I need a washcloth on my face. To
be clear, all this that we're talking about right now is happening because they're telling her not to push. They're like, don't push. The doctor's not here. He's going to be here in a minute. Don't push. And it just so happened, I remember you going, I can't. I feel like I have to push.
I can't.
And she's like, oh.
Not.
And I remember you started to kind of cry. It was like a worried cry because you were like, I feel like I have to push. And you were going, oh no. And they were
describing the worst feeling I've ever felt.
I literally watched the doctor walk in and they go, okay, push. And
I pushed too fast. They told me to stop.
They were like, whoa. I didn't realize it, but when they were saying like, don't push, I made the mistake. It wasn't a mistake, but I made the uneducated decision to lean over and look. And I don't know how to describe
I am uncomfortable right now.
what I saw, but it was basically like this much. Like I could have reached down and gone like this. And it was like a really like bluish purple, slightly covered with hair ball coming out of my wife's crotch. And I was like, holy shit. I didn't realize we were there yet, but it was beautiful. I look down and I see my daughter's head. And so they go, okay, push. And I remember she like pushed once and they were like, good job. And I looked down and it was like when you squeeze like something and then it's like it pops through. Her head came through and I'm like, and it's like this. It's like jelly head, because there's no muscle. And I'm like, oh my God. And I look back up and Carly's like, oh, I got to push again. And I remember I said, honey, her head is out.
I remember that.
I said, her head is out. I said, push it out.
In awe by that.
And I remember you pushed again and she came slipping out like she was on a slip and slide.
It's scary.
It was just like right out. And this is the part where the nurses were like, don't ever tell this story because it's going to make, all the mothers that went through 24 hours of labor, like they're going to hate you. But it literally happened so fast.
It was like 3 pushes.
It was like 1, 2, 3, out.
That's what it felt like. Well, you just described I think, the worst feeling I've ever felt in my life. When you go into active labor, which is like you go through transition, which means your baby drops down into your pelvis and it's at the other side of your cervix ready to come out. And at this point, the cervix is completely effaced, they call it, I think, and dilated, which means like there's like this is getting too much into it, but there's like a layer of like inside protection that is effacement. It's like, it's two basically layers of whatever. So that has to open, and then your actual outside cervix has to open. That was like completely open, ready for go time. And I remember the doctor being like, okay, don't push. And keep in mind, I did not have medication. At one point I was like, okay, I need it. Like, where's the anesthesiologist?
Yeah, they're like,
and they were like, sorry, sister, like we'll call him, but like, he's not, there's no way.
Like, I remember she said, by the time he gets here, the baby's going to be out.
Yeah. And I remember there was the older nurse, and I remember her looking at me because I think she, at some point, or maybe she read our like wish report or whatever. I remember her looking at me. That lady was so awesome. She got like right up in my face, because when you go into that moment, you have tunnel vision. Like, you can only see like one thing in front of you, and you can't. And I remember this lady, she got right up in my face, and she like put her hand on my shoulder, and she looked me dead in the eye, and she goes, you can do this. You're already there. You don't need it. And I was like, okay. And it gave me that momentum that I needed to like push through it and just like do it. Cause you can probably remember this. I think she sensed that I was getting a little not confident. I was like, no, like I need help. I can't do this.
You started getting into panic mode.
Oh yeah.
Because
it was scary.
It happened so fast. You kept going, is she okay? Is she okay? And they all knew that everything was fine. It was just coming really fast. But to us, it was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And as soon as I leaned over and saw, like, I fully just expected to like lean over and see her hoo-ha. And I'm like, holy shit.
It's a real life
it's like there. This big. Like, her head was like that big coming out of there. And it's like, I did not know that's what it was going to be like.
I kind of wish that some people request a mirror to see it. Oh. I kind of wish I would have.
It happened so quick.
It's just interesting.
It's incredible how it happened.
So the feeling of somebody telling you to not push when your body, every fiber and being in your body, when you do not have an epidural and you can feel every single thing, is telling you that you have to push this baby out. And somebody says, don't push.
Well, so in fairness, it literally, all this stuff happened so fast, from being in that room to the nurses just hauling her down the hall. The nurses didn't even have time to get all of their scrubs on. Yeah. Like, they were scrambling to put like the stuff on their faces. Yeah. And I look over, and Lila's like coming out, and they're like, don't push. But they weren't saying it like, oh, you have to wait. They're like, we don't have our gloves on yet. Like, give us a second. So, like,
but everything in my body was saying like, no, you have to. So that was the strangest feeling in the whole world.
You were giving birth in that room.
Yeah.
Like, that's why she was like,
oh yeah, for sure. It would have been that. Yeah, it would have been
if they would have waited 5 more minutes.
Yeah, it would have been.
You would have been having a baby in that room.
Well, and stupid me, I'm like, oh, this is rough. I'm gonna have a rough time if this is the beginning of labor. And come to find out, it was the end of labor.
Yeah, you had already done.
I had just worked myself through what. Okay, here's an interesting psychology fact. Any psychologists who are watching this, I was telling myself that it was less than what it was. So I was making myself believe, like a placebo effect, I think. I was basically believing that it wasn't as bad as it was, which was making my brain be like,
I can deal with
this. You can do this. If you can do this, you can do the rest of it. But I was like talking myself into that it, like, this shouldn't be that bad. So I was like it's weird, because that I remember that I like had this moment where I was like, oh, I can do this. If this, like, I can just work through this. And this is the beginning of it. If this is the beginning, you got to just tough it out. When come to find out, it was the whole shebang. So it's interesting what I did to myself psychologically there when I believed that it wasn't what it was. So
let's just say this.
Yeah.
Your body is capable of doing things well beyond what you think it can do.
It's a wonderland.
When you don't have an option,
Yeah.
it will do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the time in an attempt to keep this under 2 hours.
Yeah. I just thought about that too. I was like, oh my God.
Lila came out perfectly healthy. The downside was she, about a day into it, developed jaundice. Mm-hmm. So without going into that full story, that was kind of a shocker to us because it was like kind of traumatic how quick it all went. And we were so happy. And then all of a sudden they were like, she can't go home yet.
Yeah.
She has this jaundice. And it's basically like her body was not getting rid of the bilirubin that it should have been processing and getting rid of. So like
Is that kidneys or liver? I can't remember.
I think it's
or
kidneys.
Both?
I think it's kidneys. The saddest little thing was our sweet little girl. They had to put her basically in this little incubator. And so we were like, thinking we're going home. And then we had to spend a day or a day and a half. It was something, like holding her hands through this little plastic thing while she was in the incubator.
Oh, that's so rough.
And then they got to a point where she was okay, but she was definitely yellow.
Well, so what's interesting too at Sparrow, our stay, so I think we maxed out on I don't know if it was an insurance thing or like a hospital policy thing, but basically if you have a newborn and your newborn goes into the NICU, but you get discharged. So I basically recovered to the point where I could walk or whatever, and whatever they check. I recovered and they discharged me, but they did not discharge Lila yet. So
right.
I wasn't allowed to stay with her overnight, but they have, and this was through the main hospital. They had oh man, I'll have to look it up. Yeah.
It was like a mother's wing.
It was somebody had donated a bunch of money and time to build this little, basically 4-bedroom suite where a mom could go and stay while their baby was in the NICU.
Where a mom could sleep and be in the building.
Yeah.
But not be.
She didn't have to leave.
Free. It was free room and board, basically. Yeah. So the mom could stay they let you have all food. The time.
They had a bed or whatever. Oh my gosh.
But the dads cannot stay.
It was so okay. Talk about going through some postpartum shit. I remember being in that room at one point and having a panic attack slightly because I was like, my baby's not here that I just had that happened so fast. My husband's downstairs sleeping on a couch and I'm by myself in this room thinking about every single thing that just happened. Panic attack. I was getting panicky. I remember I ended up calming myself down, but it was okay, the trauma is a good word, but also I feel like there's a better word. It's overwhelming.
It's a lot of stress all at once.
And if you're not
new stress,
if it's the first time you've ever done it, for us, we had no idea. I mean, we read all the books, we took the classes, but until you go through that, it's really hard to comprehend what it's going to be like.
If you're watching this video, if you found this podcast and you've listened all the way through, even if you've had a baby or if you're preparing to have a child, just go into it fully expecting that stuff is going to happen that you are not aware of.
Yeah.
There's a very good chance that your plan of what you think is going to happen is not going to happen at all. So just be okay with it.
Yeah.
Because for us, it was a bunch of things hit us all at once. And it was whoa, didn't see that coming.
Well, and I think too, you said, the plan, it's I was open to not feeling defeated if I did need a C-section or if I did need an epidural. If I got to that point, I was letting myself be open, but hopeful that I didn't need it. And I wasn't, and you just really don't know until you're there. And it's you almost have to give yourself some grace. And no shade to people that have babies with epidurals, no shade to people that have babies without epidurals, no shade to anybody who just decides their own
do
path.
What you have to do to get your baby out safe.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Do not be ashamed or embarrassed or whatever. Just be proud that you're doing the best that you can. Yep.
100%. And if you have somebody supporting that, then that's great. And if not, do you? So it's I just remember, oh man, I remember going through that moment and feeling feeling alone. Oh my gosh, I felt so alone. And you and it was the point where like we had exhausted all of our thoughts together. I sat with you downstairs. We were like talking about everything. We were like listening to songs that were making us like literally weep. We were weeping. We were like,
so the deal was like in the mother's wing.
And we were awake for 30 hours.
What?
48? What was it?
No. From the time we left,
slept.
Carly was sleeping. From the time that I left, it was 100 hours before we went. Basically,
how many days is that? Like,
I don't even know.
3 or 4.
I remember the time that I finally got to go to sleep for more than like a half an hour.
Yeah,
it was 100 hours that had passed, and within that 100 hours, I'd slept like 3 hours.
Yeah, it was weird.
And I like went into I was like a baby by the end of it.
We're kind of like, and that was again like our initial parenting mistake. We were like, oh, we'll just stay awake. And everybody, the nurses, everyone was like, we've got your baby. She's safe. Yeah. She's healthy. She's fine. Don't worry. Go lay down and rest. And we were like, okay. And then you'd get there and you're like, I can't turn my brain off.
Flash forward to baby number 3 and I'm sleeping on the couch after childbirth and the nurse goes, is he just going to sleep the whole time? Like, heck yes, I am.
I looked at her and I was like, yeah, we're good. I was like, we're all set. I'm fine. It's his turn right now and it'll be my turn in like an hour. No big deal. We're like shifting on and off. All right. That was so funny.
So jaundice goes away.
Yeah.
We took it's called a Billy blanket home and did that whole deal. All good.
She was our little firefly.
Yes.
Our little light bug.
That was Lila. Lauren was the easy one through like the pregnancy.
The only difference is, we'll just talk about the differences.
Yeah.
We got to do Lauren justice.
But, I mean, realistically, Lauren was super simple.
Easy. However,
she had all the right checkups. The dates were pretty much spot on.
Yeah. Dating was good.
She was always like, she measured where she needed to be. Like,
yeah, she was so
like
sweet.
She was our easy baby.
Okay. So Lauren though, there was nothing majorly significant in the pregnancy that was weird or like scary or anything, just besides the, what was it with Lauren?
Lauren was the scariest one.
At the end, the actual birth. So the difference between the actual beginning of the birth process with Lauren. So Lila's water, the water that I had with Lila broke. It ruptured. That's what they called it. The membrane had ruptured, but it wasn't a full bag break.
Like splash water out.
Lauren, however, I was laying in bed and was awake, but being very still. And I felt the bag break inside of me. The actual amniotic sac split open while it was laying there, and I felt it go from like being tight to all of a sudden being loose, and I felt like a weird wave of like, okay, this is how I explained it to Matt. If you filled up a full water balloon and you put it underwater and you squeezed it as hard as you could to pop it, that's what it felt like inside of my body. It was, and I don't know if like when your water breaks, you're like, a lot of people are walking around. Yeah.
Were you laying in bed?
I was laying in bed. Yep. So a lot of people, I think when their water breaks or it has happened where you're walking around, so you can't really like feel that weird sensation.
Yeah.
I will never forget that feeling. I was just laying there, not moving, awake. In any other reason or any other time or place, I wouldn't have been doing that. I was just like, what just happened?
But you weren't having contractions or anything.
Braxton Hicks, normal, like whatever. But my water broke while I was laying down.
We didn't go to the hospital. We didn't like
prematurely or anything.
Yeah, we were just like, well, we'll wait a little bit, and like we were super calm and like, oh, we've got time.
Oh yeah, because
like you weren't having contractions that were like, we need to get there right now.
Right. So
your water broke, but we were thinking like, okay, we have within 24 hours.
Well, no. Or whatever it is. When your water breaks, you have to go right away. So
yeah, I know, but like
that we'll have a baby
beginning of the process.
Yeah, you were thinking with
we got our stuff around and left, but it wasn't like we were like,
we're having a baby right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or so we thought. So yeah, Lauren. Yeah. No. Lauren was different. So my water broke and it fully broke, and it was like the movie style. My water broke, and it was, we got in the car, and I remember feeling like my stomach or my belly, my abdomen had shrunk like it like felt like I was like 6 months pregnant again.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is weird. And I remember telling Matt, because they always say like, check and make sure your baby's moving. They always have you do checks. And I remember just having my hand on my belly and not feeling her move. And I was like, oh dear God, like what's going on? So we get there, we check in, and the lady, at the front, she's like, what's going on? And I said, oh, my water broke. I think we're gonna have a baby. So they got me right back there really fast.
No,
they said, okay.
That's not what happened.
You came in after me, right?
No, that's not what happened at all.
Yeah, they had me go to the bathroom.
They had us sit down
for a second. It wasn't long.
No, because we checked in at the window.
Wait, what?
We checked in at the window.
We sat down?
Absolutely.
Boy, that shows how much I didn't black out.
We sat down. We checked in at the window.
Oh, I'm thinking
we said, hey, we're here.
Okay.
We think we're going into labor.
I know what part I'm thinking of. Yep,
Yeah.
You're right. We did sit down.
See, this is why it's important
weird.
to document this stuff. We
Yeah,
sat
I
down
blacked out a little
and we sat in the little waiting area. It's same hospital, same everything as Lila. We sat there, and like probably 5 minutes later, they came out, and they either got you or you walked up and asked them.
Was it that long?
Something. Yeah, because we were sitting there, and I think you either got up and were like,
oh, I had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, for some reason you went and you talked to them, and then you went back.
Yeah.
Like they let you through.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting out there by myself, and it's like 10 minutes goes by. And I'm like,
that's right.
And I'm like,
that did
okay,
happen.
this is weird. And maybe like 15 minutes goes by. And by this point, I'm like, okay, what the heck? Like nobody said anything to me.
Yeah.
And
they didn't even know that like we checked in.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there, and I remember getting this weird feeling of like, something's not right.
Yeah.
Something doesn't seem right. And I walked up and I said, hi, my name is Matt Lewis. I'm here with my wife. We're going to have a baby. Is she back there? And I'll just tell my side of this. They go, oh yeah, she's in the back. Come on back. And I'm just casually walking through. Nobody's saying like, yeah, go down here to the right. I'm like slowly walking through all these people. And I'm like, I finally get up and I see a lady, and she goes, are you Matt? And I said, yep. She goes, okay, come in. Everything's going to be fine. And I'm like, what? And I look in, I walk into this room.
This is probably the most traumatic thing you've seen.
They have Carly on all fours, like propped up on this like couch. And
it was the hospital. It was the bed.
Or the bed or whatever it is. And
up.
Carly is crying. I mean,
bawling my eyes
like
out.
Scared. Or she's going, is she going to be okay? Is she going to be okay? Crying her eyes out, like hysterically bawling. And I'm like, what
to the point
fuck?
where they gave me oxygen because I was like, hyperventilating.
I'm like, nobody even thought to come get me?
So you came in and see me, by the way, you came in and saw, okay, this is, okay.
So
now,
that's my perspective.
Really, really, really leave now and unsubscribe if you don't want to hear what I'm about to say. Fair warning. You've all been warned. This was probably the most vulnerable that Matt's ever seen me in terms of like a physical nature. I was on all fours naked because they didn't have time to tie the gown around me. So fully naked with like 10 different people in the room.
Yeah.
You lose any sense of
security, calmness.
You lose any sense of modesty when you have a child. It just goes out the window. If you were afraid of people like seeing you naked before, you're just like,
oh, the weird part was I didn't even think, I couldn't care less that you were on all fours and that people had their hands in your vagina. And I'm like, I couldn't care. I was so freaked out that you were so upset and crying.
So I'm painting this picture here. So I was on all fours.
I am shaking and I'm sweating.
Weird.
Reliving this.
It's scary. I keep shivering because it's like
I'm
freaking
out.
Ugh. I was on all fours, completely naked. Sorry, I keep repeating now. Sorry.
It's okay.
There was fluid and blood and stuff happening because my water broke. All the things the processes started to happen. I'm hyperventilating, so they have oxygen on my face. I'm crying. The lady is trying to find the heartbeat by like rubbing my belly. The other lady has her hands deep down in, like pushing her head to get some pressure off, because what we figured out was that when my water broke, all of like the cushy padding around baby and umbilical cord goes away. So what happened was when we were going up and like you stand up and all that pressure and weight comes down to the bottom, what happened was her little umbilical cord got in between probably the wall of like my abdomen or my body or uterus or whatever it is.
She was pinching it.
And her head. So it was pinching it, which restricts blood flow from going to the baby, which makes your heart rate drop. The baby's heart rate drop. So now from my perspective, I'm going back there and I'm in the bathroom, like weird like stuff is happening and like fluid is coming out and everything. They're like, okay, are you feeling okay? And I was like, kind of, like I feel kind of weird. And so the one nurse, mind you, it was like, what time was it? Like 7 in the morning?
I don't even remember.
It was really early. So the one nurse comes in and she's like, how are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm okay. It's a little uncomfortable.
That's right. Yep. It was early, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really early. I was like, because we went to Panera Bread and we got our Redemption got our sandwiches. Yeah. This time, see, now looking back and I feel bad. This time when we were on the way, he looked at me and it wasn't Qdoba because it was 7 in the morning. He goes, do you want to go get bacon, egg, and cheese Asiago bagels? And I was like, yes, I do. Yeah. I learned my lesson the last time.
And so you felt fine.
I felt fine.
You were like, we're all good. Yeah. Like nothing's weird.
My water broke and that was it. And there was just like a little bit more pressure. So I was like, okay.
So when you go back, when they take you back, quickly go through what happened to when you were on all fours.
Yeah. So I get back there and the lady says like, hi, how are you feeling? And I said, good. Like, I'm my water broke. It like basically is like all out. There's like no more water coming out. She was like, okay, well that's good. We're just going to check you around. We're going to feel you. So she started to like feel my belly, zero concern in her face. There was no like, I tend to look at facial expressions a lot, like to read nurses, and some of them are good poker players. Some of them you can tell a lot. This lady was just like, she was kind of like, she looked a little perplexed, but she's like, okay. She had like the pulse monitor or whatever hooked up to my finger, had the blood pressure cuff, like everything was kind of getting attached to me. And at this point, it was just her. And she put the Dopplers on my belly. And usually they do one on top and one on the bottom to like measure
heart monitors.
Whatever. Yeah, the Doppler heart monitors. Yeah. So I think that's what they're called. She put them on my belly. And then they have like a manual one that they can kind of like rotate around. I don't think it wasn't an ultrasound. It was just like she was like moving it around to try to get, because they band it to you. They put this like elastic band. So she starts to move it around and she's like clicking around on her computer. And I remember there was a lot of movement with her like attaching things to me. And then all of a sudden she was standing really still. And she was like, I heard like click, click, click. And then she like reached over without looking at me and she like moved it. She went click. And then she moved it like this and she goes click, 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 click. And she's like moving faster. And I was like, at this point, I started to look at her like, is everything okay? And that's when I started to get that clammy, panicky, like, okay, this isn't right. Something's not right. I don't feel Lauren moving. This lady is confirming that now. What is happening? So she like,
and we're
immediately, she looked right dead in my eyes and she goes, I need you to turn over, get on all fours and like hunch your back.
Yeah.
And I heard her go like, she took 2 big steps out in the hallway and she went, I need blah, 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 blah. And like within
same thing.
10 seconds. Not even. Within 5 seconds. There were like 10 people. 10 people came in. And
there were a lot of nurses in that room.
There was one lady that had me signing papers. I was like, who the hell are you and what am I signing?
Yeah.
She explained it to me very, very fast and very quickly, which they have to like basically administer medical help. I hadn't even gotten to the point where I had signed all the papers saying, yes, you can treat me basically. Yeah. So she's, as I'm on all fours, hyperventilating, and there's a lady with her hand in my hoo-ha, and there's another lady with the thing. She's like, can you sign this? I was like, what the hell is this? I don't know what I'm signing.
And the entire time I'm sitting out in the hallway like do-do-do.
Yeah.
No idea.
That's that TikTok. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So that was insane. So this
gets blurry for me.
Yeah. They finally got it stabilized. So they figured out that the cord was being pinched. They did their magic and they rotated everything all around. They had me sitting on my side.
Heartbeat started to go again.
Oh my God. I had to be in a very, very specific angled position because they didn't, until they got the ultrasound around, they didn't know exactly where everything was in terms of like where Lauren was, where her umbilical cord was and all that stuff. So they had to have me sit in this one spot and literally not move. They were like, do not move. And I was like, okay. And it was really uncomfortable. I remember my leg falling asleep and they're like trying to like push pillows underneath to like prop it up. And I'm like, oh my God. They finally figured out what was going on.
I still don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you were like,
They still didn't tell me what was going on. Like, they didn't tell me until they wheeled you out.
I didn't even know what was going on. I just knew they couldn't find a heartbeat. I didn't know it was the umbilical cord. I just thought she was like, not
so they've got you alive. Like, they've got the heartbeat going. They're like, we are taking you to deliver like right now. They were like, it's time to go.
We're going to the room. Yeah,
we're going to the room. So they wheel her out, and I remember this very nice nurse like stopped me. And she was like, we had a little scare. Yeah. Like, we think everything's fine, but we're going to move quickly. And they're like, because I walked in and I'm like,
what's happening?
What in the world? Yeah. I'm like, what? And they're all frantically, you know, so it was very nice of this lady to be like,
yeah, here's what's
it's
going on.
It's going to be okay. Your wife is very upset. She's like, get your stuff and go down to be with your wife. Like, we're going to have a baby now.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
so I think what they initially were talking about was possibly doing an emergency C-section. I think that was being thrown around because they weren't sure how stable she was.
Well, they didn't know how long
it was going to be.
The blood flow had stopped.
Exactly.
Like, it could have been a minute. It could have been
the whole time we were driving.
It could have been, you know. Yeah.
Exactly. So what they had to do was, I think they had to do some follow-up checks to understand what her oxygen level. So they actually ended up, I think this was with Lauren. They ended up putting probes into her head.
They were like little needles
through my cervix. To measure her blood flow and to measure the oxygen in her blood. And then they determined from that was weird. They determined from that she was stable and everything was good and they didn't have to move forward with a C-section.
Right.
Which, again, her entire pregnancy and everything up until that point. And then there was this major scare. That's how she is. She's a short fuse.
Yeah, we call her short fuse because she's
that's
like
her personality.
So calm and collected, and then she's
and Lila gets dramatic very fast, and then she like, oh, that's funny.
So okay, so we get to the room. What happened with Lauren? So the odd thing was Lauren. We were sitting there for probably entered the world probably in the exact same spot.
It was the same room,
same spot. It's like a portal. And they both came through the exact same spot, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was actually really cool. A portal. Oh, that's cute. You said that. So, Lauren, we were so different than Lila's. Lila's was like go time from start to like it. What's it called? A crescendo. It was like it was like this, and then Lauren was like, everything's fine. Holy shit! And then it was like, okay, now we're waiting again. And it was that for I don't know, it was 2 hours. 3 hours? It was a long time.
See, this is the gray area.
It was a long time.
I went into like blackout mode.
Well, and I was having contractions. And at one point, I was holding on to the edge. Do you remember that? The contractions were...
Yeah.
The contractions with Lauren's were the worst. The worst.
I don't think it was that long. I think it was like maybe an hour and a half.
Oh, I don't even remember. It felt like 2 hours.
No, like I don't think it was that long.
Probably not.
Because I wasn't hanging out in that room.
Yeah, probably not. It was probably a lot less time than I thought it was. Just felt like it was forever.
Like I think you were at like 7 centimeters or something. Like when we got to the room, and then it was
it 5? No, you're right. It was like we got to a certain point. I think it was because they were like messing with stuff. I think it was like a manual dilation.
I don't even remember. I just remember being so terrified.
To the anesthesiologist. Do you remember that?
Yep.
He came in. We finally got to meet him. And then I was like,
do you want to try it?
Yeah, he asked. He said, you're at 3 or 4 or 5 now.
I think you were at like 5.
Yeah, he was like, you're at 5 now. How's your pain level? And I was like, it's okay. But like, you know, I feel like I'm doing okay. And he kept saying, okay, well, like, you know, let me know. I'll come back in and check on you in like a few, it was like 20 minutes or something. And I think he came in twice and I turned him down because basically they come in at any point and you're not in active labor and you can get an epidural. And I think he came in and it was so tempting, especially going through that like traumatic, stressful time. And I was like, maybe I
remember you saying like, maybe I do.
Maybe I should just take it easy. This is like a little, you know, that was pretty stressful. I don't want this to be like really crazy. So one difference with Lauren versus Lila's contractions, I felt like I could sense coming and kind of breathe through. Lauren's contractions, because I didn't have the bag of water, which with Lila's broke on the way out. So as Lila was coming out, that's when the bag of water broke. So there was like this very like nice cushion of like amniotic fluid when contractions were happening. With Lauren, it was literally just like muscle to baby. And it was so uncomfortable. Lauren's contractions were the worst.
Yeah, I remember you being like, I remember halfway through when you were, when transition happened for you, when it was like no turning back. I remember you looked at me and said, I want to get the epidural. I want to get the epidural. And the lady looked at me and she was like,
you're not getting the epidural. And at that point I had decided, and I was like, I've made a horrible mistake. This is not going to be good for me.
Yeah.
And I remember going into, it was probably like the most intense contractions right before transition happens, where like you are having a baby. I remember holding, so there's like the little hospital bed has like these 2 little like holes that you can put your hands out to like hold on to if you need to. I remember turning on my side and I had a hold of it like this. And I was like, oh, this was so unpleasant. I was going, help, help, help. And I looked at Matt and I was like, somebody has to help me. This isn't right. Something's wrong. Right. I need help.
Like, breathe,
they're like, you're good. You just don't have any fluid in there to help your body. Like not, and oh my God, the worst out of any of the kids. That was the worst feeling. You were in pain.
It looked like you were trying to physically get away from it.
I can't.
You were like, ow, ow, ow.
That's exactly what you feel like doing. If it's an out of body experience where you feel like you want to just not be in your body anymore. You're just like, I got to get out of here. But that being said, once those contractions where it was pushing you to the point where you were ready to have the baby, those are the worst. Like the actual pushing and the having a baby part doesn't hurt as bad in my case.
We had a same situation though, where like you got up to it and then when you started pushing, which is not typical, it was like literally 2 pushes.
Well, so I think
she came out.
So I think a lot of some women have something called the ring of fire, which is basically it stretches so bad to the point where it tears and it does not feel good. TMI again, but I was very lucky to not have that happen to me.
You didn't
I always joke that quote from Mean Girls that's like, I have a wide set vagina and a heavy flow. Me, apparently. Sorry, everybody. So yeah, sorry.
For whatever reason.
I don't know.
Yeah, whatever reason, you got like a Stretch Armstrong vagina.
Throwing a hot dog down a hallway.
It's like open, closed.
Open, my God, I hope my parents are watching this.
I was going to say it was from years of training with me.
Oh, but Marky Mark, my father-in-law, I'm sorry, don't watch this anymore. So basically that happened. Lauren came fast and furious and then stopped and then came fast and furious again, which is her personality to a T. She's so sweet and calm until she wants to not be. And she's like,
it wasn't more than... I want to say from the time we got there.
I can't believe I just said that.
It wasn't only
on camera.
A couple, maybe 3 hours.
Can we cut that out?
No.
Okay. Oh boy.
It's all in there.
I regret all of the things I just said.
Regrets. So it was not a long process. No. It was like
it happened quick.
4, 3, 2, 3, 4. We'll have to look back. Yeah. I honestly don't even remember. It was so traumatizing to see what I thought was happening and then like come back from it and give birth and like I didn't do anything. I just, whatever. So Lauren was like to the point she came out and you were up and walking like within 6 hours and you were like, like they make you get up and go to the bathroom. Like you were like good to leave.
That was weird.
Like 4 hours after giving birth. And they were like, take it easy. And you're like, I feel good. I feel
but also story of my life. I don't listen and I don't take it easy. So what's interesting though is Lauren, I think the recovery with Lila is pretty good, except the no sleep and except the jaundice where we had to extend our so it was like mentally I was exhausted. Physically I was like, okay.
Do you remember this?
What?
There was the funniest lady. She was our nurse with Lila, the first one. And when it came time to leave, I had to go get the car seat.
Oh, I feel like
it was like an emotional thing for us, but it probably took us 45 minutes to get her in the car seat and buckled up and like all and this lady walked in and she goes, okay, you guys all ready to go? And she looked at me and she goes, you guys better hurry it up. Like, that's a little much.
She did.
She was
in the nicest way possible.
She was giving us shit for like, she's like, you're going to have to get better at that.
The baby's going to be fine. Just put it in the seat and get out.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, with Lauren, I think we were like...
Now we're like Cruella de Vil driving down the road while our kids are not strapped in. And we're like, yes, I'm good.
I was like, can we get the heck out of this hospital? Like, are you good?
Oh, with
I'm
Lauren?
good. Like, can we go home?
Yeah,
like,
we were at one point, we were standing because there's a lot of weird processes that you have to do. Like the birth certificate people have to come in. You have to like sign your life away. You have to literally sign a new life into the world. You have to like agree to all these terms and conditions and all this stuff. Fingerprinting comes in like.
And Lauren latched on to breastfeed like immediately.
Instantly. It
like
was
she was
awesome.
A champ.
Yeah. Lila was different because she was considered like late preterm.
Well, it was just like, it was new for us.
Yeah.
And the second one, we were like,
Lila also she also did not take to that very quickly, but we stuck with it. Yeah. But yeah, it was, that was interesting because Lauren was after that. Yeah. It was like the recovery was really good. I didn't have any major stitches. I didn't have anything that required me to not be or to be bedridden or couldn't walk around. No jaundice. Nothing. She came out and was the sweetest little peanut and just was
she just
so
scared the
cute.
shit out of us for like that 5-minute pocket. That was the scariest thing of all childbirth of anything.
Yeah, totally agree.
From getting pregnant through like the miscarriage through all that stuff.
Totally agree.
That scared the hell out of me.
Totally
It scared me so bad.
And like props to the nurses that knew exactly what to do and got everything stabilized and back to like nurses are magicians. They're magical.
I will say this. I know there's like people out there that are like, oh, we want to have babies at home, or we want to do like, if you got somebody that can come to your house and they can help you through that stuff. If we would have done that in that situation, it could have been something terribly different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like just, there's a reason that skilled professionals are out there, and do your due diligence, find a group of people that you trust, because I don't think I would have had the mental capacity to deal with that. Like I just without having like medical experience like that. Oh my gosh.
And I don't think that's to say that it's not for everybody, but it's definitely for us. I think we made the right choice. And
I just feel very happy that we made the choice that we did.
I agree at the time. Yeah. Cause if for sure. Yeah. So Lauren, and what's funny about Lauren, she slept through the night day one. I had to wake her up to feed her every single night.
And now she won't go to bed.
And Lila was the complete opposite. We got home with Lila and she thought that 6 a.m. was really...
We have a video of her.
10 p.m. And 10 p.m. was really 7 a.m. Like, wake up. It's time to wake up. You recorded me
bouncing Lila. And when the clock literally hit exactly 6, she fell asleep and I put her in her crib every night for months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, her nights and days were turned around. I'll never forget my cousin Marty jokingly said, well, you guys should just move to China and you'd be all set because you're completely opposite on the different time zone. Gosh. But yeah, she was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And honestly, if that would have been the reverse.
Oh yeah.
If we would have had Lauren's process and birth first, and then we would have had Lila's on top of having a 2-year-old, I don't even know what we would have done.
Yeah, I don't know.
We would have been wrecked because Lauren, like Lila was she was 2 and she was her little sweet toddler self. And then Lauren was just like, yeah, I'm just going to sleep. And it was like, oh my God. Like,
man, Lauren was so sweet.
She was so sweet. And Lila was so sweet too, but it was like, Lauren just was like, I got this. I'll just, different things that you have to pay attention to. But
and so here's a funny thing too. I couldn't figure out what was going on with Lila. She wouldn't sleep. She'd wake up so easy. And finally, we realized, this is a good tip. I was like, I felt weird, but if I could swaddle her as physically tight as I possibly could, she would sleep for hours and just feel totally good. I'm talking like, I would get her so tight in a swaddle blanket. I'm like, am I going to crush her?
Do you remember the nurses telling us that? They're like, you can't do it too tight. You can swaddle this girl. And I remember mine. And the first time I tried to swaddle her, it was like, if you take a towel and just throw it on the floor, that's what it looked like.
To be fair,
just a bundled up blanket.
Our class that told us, and this is to each their own, the class that we went through about birthing and child development and everything said, if you're going to breastfeed, don't give your baby a passy. Well, with our first kid, it turned into a nightmare.
We were so nice.
She cried and cried and cried and cried. All she wanted was a passy. And when we started to give her a passy, she would sleep through the night. It was like, but we went months without giving this girl a passy. And that's all she wanted.
We took those people's word for gold, and silly us thinking that we couldn't make our own choices in life.
Use your own intuition.
Yeah, agreed.
Try things.
Fully agree.
Get some sleep.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. So with Lauren, we gave her a passy if she wanted it. Sometimes she didn't, whatever. She slept through the night. She was awesome.
That was so funny.
Lauren was so easy. Honey, don't ever scare us like that again. If you're watching this 20 years from now, just realize you're part of the reason I have gray hairs coming in.
Oh my gosh. That was just like insane.
Okay.
So yeah.
We are quickly approaching 2 hours, and my goal is to get close to 2 hours of this podcast.
Adam. Okay.
So let's talk Adam.
First, tell the story of the guy at the birthing class. Really fast.
Okay. Yeah. So real quick.
You tell it the
with
best.
Lila, we went to this birthing class, and it was it a few nights? Or was it just one?
I think it was one
Whatever.
session.
We had this
two.
thing, and this lady, she was a hippie. No offense to hippies, but she told, that lady, I just remembered. She told us to never put diaper cream on our baby. They don't need it, whatever.
Yeah.
Our dumbasses.
That was weird that she said
our
that.
Our dumbasses let Lila, I'm so sorry about this, babe. You didn't know this, but now you do. She got diaper rash when she was a baby, and we were like, well, the lady told us not to do it. She said, never put it on. You don't need it. Her diaper rash got kind of bad.
Say that too?
I don't know.
It was like a chemical. She was like worried about the chemicals.
Whatever.
I think. Which, okay, if you're worried about the chemicals,
but this was through the
that's
hospital.
fine.
In all fairness, it was a class through the hospital. Well, anyway, long story short, we put some diaper cream. We put some Desitin on her butt. It cleared up. It was a rough start for us as parents and for Lila. We're sorry. We got better. But anyway, we got into this thing, and we're like practicing all these techniques and learning about all these things. And then they had the dads. We were all in this big circle. The moms had to say, like, what are you most scared of? So the moms all went around and, they did it. And then the dads were, we went all around. And we get to this guy, and he's, I don't know, probably 10 years older than me. Like, he's an older young man. And they said, okay, like, whatever your name is, Steve, tell us, what's your biggest fear? And he like scooted up to the edge of the table, and he goes, poop. It's the poop. I don't know if I can deal with all the poop. And I'm looking at this guy going, what an idiot. I'm like, you think you're going to have a baby and not deal with poop? He's like, I just don't know if my stomach can take it. And I'm like, oh.
Every female in that room was just like.
Everybody looked at that guy's wife or fiance and was like, you picked that guy?
Oh, he was being so honest.
But he was dead
he
serious.
Was like,
he's like, I just don't know if I can deal with poop.
He was so honest.
Is that a normal thing? How many dads out there have like a major issue dealing with poop?
A poop fear. Well, I think he said at one point, he said, anytime I smell poop, it makes me want to vomit,
puke.
like
yeah.
gag.
It's like my gag reflex goes off.
Yeah, that's what he said. So he goes, I don't know how to like overcome that. I'm afraid that I'm going to throw up on the baby.
He was getting so gaggy.
Yeah, just
talking about it. And I'm like, oh man, you're a goner. I'm like, enjoy the next 10 years of your life with kids or whatever.
Man.
So anyway.
That was so funny.
All right. So let's talk Adam.
Let's talk about Adam.
Adam had you had the thing where your like pelvis, by baby number 3, your pelvic bone had loosened up to the point where it was like separating before you were like giving birth.
My pelvis was like, hey, hi, I'm done. This has got to be the last one.
And it's painful.
It's painful.
It's a real thing.
It does not feel good. It feels like when you tear your meniscus in your knee and you step on it. That's what it felt like. Because
it's like a shock.
I have hurt my meniscus or some ligament in my knee skiing, and when I go to step down on it, it's the same feeling where your body just wants to like, I don't want to step on that. That's what it felt like for like 2 weeks straight. Anytime I went up the stairs, stepped sideways, like forward, didn't matter what I did. Sleeping, oh God, could not sleep at all.
Baby number 3 was probably the most uncomfortable for you.
Oh, Yes, because I think I had the most weight, just pure like body weight on my body plus all the other stuff. But by the end of it, and this is so weird, I didn't have any swelling with the girls, and I had weird swelling in my hands, in my feet. It was like to the point where I was putting lotion on my feet all the time because my skin was stretching, and it was like prickly, ouchy, like burn feeling. Like, it was awful.
Don't take this the wrong way, because you were beautiful when you were pregnant.
Thanks.
But you looked the most pregnant.
You didn't like my club feet?
No, it wasn't that. You
my
just you put on weight in different spots. Like, you looked.
I was way pregnant.
More pregnant than
my
the other two.
Thighs absorbed a lot of that weight also, I believe. Yeah, my stomach was my belly was very big. And I weighed the most pre-pregnancy that I did, I think, out of any of the kids. So I'm sure it just like lended its hand to that also. But I would say the last couple weeks, and we went over 40 weeks, didn't we, with Adam? Or no, we were 39 and
we were like
8.
right.
It was like
dead on.
1 day or 2 days off.
So our timing with this one was it was good.
Accurate.
But so now I'm trying to think. Now with Adam, we had a positive pregnancy test, and then when we went in to have the doctor check,
that was weird.
They did not see that you were pregnant.
Yeah, that was weird.
So we had to wait, and there was confusion in the beginning about like,
what the date was.
Are you sure you're pregnant? Like what? Because they weren't picking it up on their test.
That was weird. The sensitivity of the test that I took versus theirs was different, I think.
But by the time we got it all good, like the schedule was fine.
So they ended up dating.
Did you just yawn on a podcast?
I did. I'm so sorry. That was the second time. They ended up dating Adam based on the actual measurement of like the ultrasound.
Yeah.
And it was not based on what I thought it was, because everyone was all confused, like, what's going on here? And so the doctor that we first had was like, yeah, we're just gonna measure, and we're gonna measure a couple times, and if it stays consistent with what we think it is, then we're gonna have your due date be this.
Right.
And funny enough, my due date, what was our due date? Was it September 22nd or the 23rd? No, it was September 25th or 6th. It was 2 days.
I honestly don't remember.
It was September 25th or September 26th. It was one of those 2 days. And he ended up being born on September 24th. So he was like 39 weeks and 8 days. Yeah. So it was right before.
Okay.
Or no, that doesn't make sense. 8 days. There's only 7 days in a week. It was like 39 and 5 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember all those things.
God,
you were the one that like, so during this whole thing, Carly was very, very detail oriented with dates and like keeping schedules and like all stuff. I'm just like, how are you feeling?
Yeah. So
like, do you feel okay?
They ended up, I think Adam was 2 days off his due date. So he
39 and 12.
Yeah, 39 and 12 weeks.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So he ended up he was actually born on my brother's birthday, which was so weird.
Yeah.
And we were joking because when we first found out we were pregnant, and we told our families, and I like called my brother and sister-in-law and everything, and I was like, they were like, oh, when's he due? Or when is it due? Because we didn't know.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, like on your birthday, like how funny would that be if it was born on your birthday? Ended up being born on his birthday. It's the weirdest phenomenon ever. So with Adam, my pregnancy was okay. There were like some kind of weird things. And then at the end, I was so done being pregnant. That was the most done being pregnant. Lila, I didn't even have a chance with Lila to be done because like besides the rib thing, I was like, oh, this is still, I'm not as big.
Right.
Lauren was like, okay, like I'm there. Adam was like,
get
like
this kid
4 weeks
out
before, I remember being like, it would be nice to have him now. Like, can we do that? Like, oh my God, this is bad. It was.
So, and we had this weird thing. Like, we found out the gender of our girls beforehand, so we knew we were having girls.
Yeah.
With our boy, we were like, we're gonna find out. So Carly, being the impatient person that she is, we went in too early and tried to do like this 3D ultrasound with this independent young girl.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember which way it went, but she told us boy first.
Yep.
And we told everybody, we're like, oh my gosh. But she goes, I'm not quite certain. So come back in. And then she told us like a week later, she was like, well, I thought it was a boy, but I'm pretty sure it's a girl. And so now we don't know. We don't know. So we're like, oh, here we go. We don't know if it's a girl or boy. And I'm thinking it's either going to be a girl with a big vagina or a boy with a little penis. One of the two. I'm like, great. Either way, it's not looking good for this one.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's not looking good for this.
We did find out later on that it was a boy, and we got all excited. And towards the end, we had, bless his little heart, our doctor was a student. He was like a doctor in training or whatever.
Yeah.
And he had been with us through the entire process. And, we were looking forward to it, and he was looking forward to it, and we were like all excited. And so we ended up going into labor with Adam, and we went in fully expecting to have a baby. And everybody was like, yep, you're having contractions. And we sat in the hospital for 2 days.
Oh my God.
We sat in the hospital for 2 days waiting to have a baby. It never happened. They discharged us, and we were like,
it was 30 hours.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, we'd been there 2 days.
Yeah.
And the guy, our doctor, was there, and he's like, we're going to do it. I feel like it, I feel it coming. And we ended up leaving. He goes, well,
I was like calling off of work
yeah.
and like starting my maternity leave and like, yeah.
And he's like, well, we're going to have you leave. You just keep track of it or whatever. And you were having legit contractions.
They were like, I would say on a scale from 1 to 10, they were like fives or sixes. Yeah. I was like, oh, these are uncomfortable.
I mean,
like
they had us up walking around the hospital trying to stimulate like full on labor.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. Yeah. So we ended up leaving. And see, this is blurry for me too. I'm glad we're talking about this. How did it happen when we actually came back? Oh, I remember. I just remembered. So I'm gonna do this one. So we're laying in bed, and Carly goes, like I'm having some contractions or whatever.
This was how many weeks later? 2? 1?
2 days.
2 days.
It was
it was a couple
like
days.
2 days, wasn't it? Or was it weeks?
No, I think it was less than a week. It was definitely less than a week.
I can't remember.
It was between 2 days and a week. Either way.
Okay. Yeah. So it was a little bit of time. But I remember the first time we went in, she was like, I feel like I'm kind of going into labor. Or like, she's like, I think we should go in. And I'm like, really? And, it was kind of wishy-washy. And I remember she woke up, or I woke up, and she was standing on the side of the bed, like pushing on her stomach, and she's kind of like holding her side, and she was like rocking. And she goes, yeah, I kind of feel like I'm having contractions. And I looked in her eyes, and I was like, oh my God, it's go time. Like there was no question when I saw her face. I said, cut the bullshit. We're going.
I think I
winced. Get your stuff. We are going now.
I think I was actually wincing. I was going like,
she was going, ah. And I was like,
okay.
Oh, I saw that last time. I was like, we don't have time. And luckily my mother was staying with us because we were like way in the red zone. We had
people on baby watch. We had my parents come up for weekends. Matt's mom was here because
thanks guys.
Yeah. With 2
so we had somebody in the house, in our guest room, in this room. And I looked at Carly and I said, seriously, no bullshit.
Yeah, we gotta
get your stuff. We're going right now.
Yeah, and I was like, okay.
Because we had about a 45-minute drive to get to the hospital,
and
which I made in 25 minutes. You do the math on that. But we made it.
This was me also post just staying in the hospital for 30 hours and also it being a 45-minute drive and also like having to call off work and do literally like all of the things. So of course my brain is telling me like, it's talking me out of it being real.
Yeah. And I'm going, like, stop wasting time.
Matt was like, there's no way this isn't like, and I was like, yeah, but it feels like it wasn't last time. And he was like, you look different.
Maybe we should wait. And I'm like, you said to me,
you go, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not listening. I'm looking at your face. Yeah. And that's what I'm basing this off of right now. Your face
is telling me that we don't have very much time.
I was like, really? Do I look different? Like scrunching my face.
So
I was like, okay.
We flew to the hospital, got there like record time. We pull right in. There's nobody there because it's in the middle of the night. And we walk in and we called. We're like, hey, we're coming in. And so we get into the room and the nurse like has you put the robe on or whatever. And was it the first time she checked you?
Yep.
Yeah. It was the first time. So she's sitting there and they're like hooking you up and they're like, okay, well, you know, we'll see where we're going. The lady like goes underneath Carly's robe and she immediately goes, we're going to have a baby.
Yeah,
you're going to have a baby right now.
And of course it was me. I was like just having contractions. And I feel like, see, this is what I'm talking about. I feel like the first baby and then the second baby kind of just like paved the way. So then the third one, your body's like, oh, I got this. I remember. My muscle memory is like, I remember what happened.
Your brain.
So it wasn't.
You were like, oh, ooh. The nurse goes, she's fully dilated. And what happened was she reached under to check, like to do the manual check.
Water broke.
No, and it was nothing but his head.
No, the water broke as I was sitting right there. Do you remember?
I know. Yeah, but when she checked you, she goes,
that's a baby head.
Her face went from like,
yeah.
she yelled out the hallway. She goes, she's fully dilated. And again, I'm talking
they get mad at me.
Within 5 minutes of her touching, like doing the manual check, he was out. He was out. They were scrambling. He came out so fast. So the saddest part about Adam's birth was Carly was just like,
I was in shock.
Yeah, like it happened so fast. They didn't even get you off the bed that they like typically
they tried to.
They tried to get her off of the bed like from the triage room.
There's like a delivery bed and then there's like a mobile drive bed.
You gave birth right on that mobile bed. But the scary thing for me, and I don't know if Carly remembers this, but Adam came out so fast and I watched it happen. I was like, whoa. They pulled him out.
It's actually bad. It's actually not good if they come out that fast.
They pulled him out, and I remember them holding him up and just setting him on Carly's lap, and he didn't move at all.
Yeah,
he laid down.
I don't remember that.
He didn't take a breath. He just laid with his arms, basically like he was hugging Carly's.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Waist.
I like
not moving at all.
Oh, because he was attached to the umbilical cord still. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But usually, like, even when he's out,
he's moving around.
Something's
But that's why he was like lower.
Didn't move, didn't breathe.
That was
just
scary.
As bad as it sound, laid there like he was dead.
Yeah, that was.
And I was scary. Like, I looked at the nurse. I said, "Something's wrong." And they're like, "Oh!" And they grabbed a towel and they like picked him up and they rubbed his back and they like kind of patted him on his butt. They sucked some
stuff out of his throat and out of his mouth.
They put a big syringe down his throat and sucked the fluid out. And luckily he like immediately started moving around.
So I think what she said was when that happens that quickly, they can actually try to take a breath and suck a bunch of amniotic fluid in, which can happen. And then it actually causes them to like stop breathing for a second until they like work it out of them. Right. So I think that's what happened. But yeah, with Adam going into triage, I'll never forget this. I was so much more calm because I had been through it a couple of times. I was like, okay, I know what to expect. I know the pain level that's going to occur. I'm not as freaked out because I don't know. And I remember the lady goes like, how do you feel right now? And I looked at her and I was like, I kind of feel like I have to poop. And she looked at me and she goes, what? And I was like, yeah, it just feels like all of a sudden I just have to go poop. But she goes,
don't push.
Okay. She goes, don't push. Let me check you really quick. And she did it. And that's what Matt was talking about. And apparently what happens is when your baby is coming down the track, it pushes on your butt with the poop in it. And it makes sure you have to go poop. And I was like, that's weird.
Her demeanor changed drastically.
Nope, it wasn't poop. It was a baby coming out.
She was like, I better check you.
And she goes, no, that's not you feeling that you have to poop. That's a baby pushing on your, So, but I'm such a naive piece of shit sometimes. I looked at her and I was like, I'm good. I'm doing okay. I just have to go to the bathroom. She's like, no, you're not. You're not going anywhere. How was I supposed to know? I just thought I had to poop. Oh my God. So anyways, that's when Matt's talking about, she looked and she was like, oh, we're having a baby. Okay, we're going. And I remember being like, oh no. And when you're in the hospital like that, a lot of times your transition from the triage room to the delivery room can be peaceful. Both of mine with Lila and Adam were flying down the hallway. Everybody get your shit and get in here now. Lauren was
Clock's ticking.
okay, we've stabilized you, but I couldn't move.
It was still fast though.
Yeah.
It was still a fast labor.
Each one of my hallway trips from triage to the delivery room was all strange. So
the only time we had what is like typical labor was when we didn't have the baby with Adam.
Yeah.
It was like a full day of you like having contractions.
That was like probably what normal
and you were uncomfortable and like
for the most part. Yeah. That was like a long normal birth. Yeah. So that was funny. So yeah, he came out. I don't remember a lot of that. I think they were, well, and what's crazy is like when that's happening, they're like doing stuff to me and also they're getting the baby out and they're doing stuff to the baby. So like half the time when the baby would
Adam
come
was
out,
born before. So typically our dog is like going nuts. He needs to go to the bathroom or something. He's like, oh, let me outside.
Should we take
No, we'll just wrap it up real fast. So typically when you're going to have a baby, the nurses will bring in a big cart with like
baby stuff.
Yeah. Stuff that is totally
A
sanitary.
rolling crib and
yeah. Like all the tools and everything. Adam was out and on Carly's lap before they even got that in the room.
Oh, and the nurse the doctor that actually delivered, she was awesome. She was a doctor on call, but she wasn't the normal one that would have been there.
Yeah.
And we gave her a run for her money. She told us, she looked at us too, and she goes,
whoa.
She was like, that happened quickly. And I was like, thank you for being here. And she was like, are you like a superhuman person? Like, who are you? Like, that was the most fast, like, weird birth I've ever seen. And she was just, I can't remember, she told me, she like said something really funny. And I remember laughing. And she's like, you're like fine right now, aren't you? And I was like, yep, this is the third one.
We joked in the last podcast that, like, come here about how we almost had a car baby. If I would have gone if I would have gone along with what Carly said, where she's like, let's just see. If I wouldn't have been like, get in the car right now. If I wouldn't have driven as fast as I had gone, we would have had a car baby. It would have been in the car.
For sure.
Oh, because we might not have even gotten into the car.
No, the nurse told us, she goes,
how fast he came out.
Yeah, she goes, when you were sitting on the triage bed, you were basically giving birth. Your contractions were pushing the baby out. And I was like, so when I was walking into the hospital, because it was only like 10 minutes from when we got to the hospital to when we were
9 centimeters dilated.
Yeah. I didn't know. I was just like, like, I'm telling you, the third one, it's just your body's like, don't worry, I got this, brain.
I'm literally sweating. It is like bringing back all these like emotions and like chemical reactions in my body.
I know.
It stresses me out to think about how stressful it was.
Yeah.
Like I'm so thankful that it happened so quickly and that it happened the way it did.
Yeah.
Like, cause I didn't want to see you go through a full day of worth of pain and like basically suffering to have a baby. Cause there were ladies, there was a lady screaming like
she was dying.
Yeah, it made me
Don't get me wrong. I felt like that inside a lot of times. And I think I screamed, I'm pretty sure with Lila, I dropped the F-bomb like 70 times. Do you remember that? And I kept apologizing. I kept going like, F, 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 I'm so sorry. And they're like, it's fine. I was like, F, 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 F.
When Adam came out, everybody was very calm. And I remember I looked right at you and I gave you a high five and I go, you're a fucking rock star. And all those people were like, I think they thought it was inappropriate. And I was like, I don't care. That was awesome.
But, yeah, that was so funny.
So that's it. That's how we had our 3 babies. We avoided having a car baby on the last baby. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up because our dog is not happy.
And we're 2 hours and 16 minutes. If you've stayed through here until the end, leave us a comment, send us your email, and we will send you a gift card because thank you.
I'll say that. What? That's legally binding.
TM. What?
No.
Retracted. Redacted. I removed that statement.
In all seriousness.
Just a joke.
In all seriousness.
But yeah, thank you for saying
this video. We did this for us so our kids can watch this and understand what we did. But if you're a new parent or if you're pregnant right now and you have any questions or, you're feeling freaked out, leave us a comment. We'll answer whatever we can.
To the best of our ability with our experience personally that we went through. And again, any medical professionals, nurses, doctors, anybody, if you're watching this,
please correct our dumb comments.
I know I'm friends with a handful of nurses. Just put asterisks and like timestamp every mistake that I made with what I said because I would love to actually understand. I think we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about the human body and all the things. Okay, our dog's going to poop his pants. Okay, bye.
Till the next one. See ya.